Hello and welcome to the Weekly Stuff Podcast with Jonathan Lack.
And Sean Chapman.
We are here as always to talk about stuff. This episode is not a good idea for my voice.
No, apparently not.
Because I spent at work today about 3 hours doing narration for something.
Yeah.
Vocal presentation on mic with my presenter voice. So, you can probably already hear I'm a little hoarse. But we have a lot to talk about. And I wanted to talk about it now. And I just thought, why the hell not?
Yeah, fuck it.
Fuck it. I got a Sprite over here. I don't know if that's good for my voice or not.
Probably not. I don't think so.
Probably
I find
not.
like Sprite feels sort of coarse to me as far as sodas go. So,
But
of all the sodas to drink when your throat is really hoarse, Sprite is maybe the worst one in my opinion.
what are your top three?
The top three worst or top three best?
That's top three best.
Top three best. Orange soda is absolutely the best.
I
If
should
we're
have
with
thought
the
of
hoarse throat. Orange soda. I think a nice like Dr. Pepper or like a Diet Cola works really well for me, and that's actually the only two I've got because all the other ones are just horrible. Like those ones aren't even good. I wouldn't say they're good, but it doesn't feel like you're just actively destroying the skin on the inside of your throat when you're drinking it.
I mean, Loaf and Jug did not, which is our gas station around here. They didn't have like alkaline water, which is what I would really need. So, Sprite, go in the other direction.
You should have just like filled the cup full of ice cubes, and there you go. That's all you need.
That's probably smarter.
It'd be a lot harder to record a podcast while chugging ice cubes, though. So not quite an option.
All right, but we're going to talk about a lot of different stuff today. I don't think this episode has a main topic. It's going to be kind of a grab bag. But in so much as we have a main topic, we're going to talk about Jason Bourne, the fourth Bourne film.
Yep.
Technically fourth with Matt Damon.
Let's just say the fourth Bourne film.
And
I feel like that studio is going to just say it's the fourth Bourne film.
Yes. And so came out this weekend. Moderately big hit, although that's another topic we need to talk about.
Right.
Is that nothing's doing well at the box office this year.
Yeah, no, it definitely doesn't seem like it.
No, and we got to talk about that. So, nothing's flopping, but nothing's doing great, and it's an interesting thing.
Yeah.
So, unless you are a Pixar movie called Finding Dory.
Yeah, or anything, it feels like everything that Disney makes just gets money.
No, Disney has done perfectly this year, other than their Alice sequel that wasn't ever going to make money anyway.
Yeah.
Which, for some reason, let's flush some money down the toilet.
It feels like there's maybe some sort of secret law we don't know about that, movie studios have to make one movie that they just, waste a bunch of money on every year.
No, totally, yeah.
Yeah.
So we'll talk about that a little later, too. But, so that'll be our spoiler discussion for the episode. We're going to talk about a bunch of other stuff. I guess we can always do, as we do at the top of the episode, spoiler-free take on Jason Bourne, Sean?
I think it's the weakest of, and this is having not seen Bourne Legacy, so I can't comment on that. It's the weakest of the Bourne movies that I've seen. We talked about our opinions on the trilogy in the last podcast that we did. I don't think it's a bad movie. It's sort of a disappointing movie. But at the same time, I think there's a really interesting movie at the heart of it that it is very clumsy at trying to get at, and they don't understand how to use the Jason Bourne character very well. But there's a new character played by Alicia Vikander that I think is very interesting. And there's a really interesting thematic idea about sort of the new generational gap between now and when the last movie came out, and the rising young people in the CIA and their role in society. And there's almost a Foucault element to the movie that I was reading into that I thought was really interesting. The main problem is that the movie just doesn't really know how to make use of that almost at all. But there is something very interesting there, and I think it's a movie worth watching. But I think you should go in with tempered expectations.
It's weird. I agree with pretty much everything you're saying, but I think I'm way more down on the movie.
Yeah.
And part of that is because I do see the hints of what is good at it in there.
Yeah.
Alicia Vikander is phenomenal in this. And she's the reigning winner for Best Supporting Actress.
Cool.
And funnily enough, for the Danish Girl, even though everyone will remember that she won for Ex Machina, which she was phenomenal in, but she wasn't even nominated for, it's one of those scenarios where Ex Machina doesn't feel like an Oscar movie, so they nominated her for an Oscar movie, even though everyone knew she was winning that for the other movie.
Right, yeah, the weird politics of Oscars and Oscar nominations.
She deserved it either way, so she's a great actress, and this was great work from her, to the point where I wish it was just a movie about her, and I don't even know if I need Jason Bourne in it.
Yeah, and that's why I'm hoping if they make a sequel to this one, that's the route they kind of take, because I think there's a lot of potential to have Jason Bourne be more of a background character in these movies now. It feels like that's the natural role his character needs to occupy, and it feels like they just didn't quite realize that in time with this film.
No, because the things I liked, I think you could spin off into their own movie. If the next one maybe you don't even have to have Bourne in the title, but it's just Paul Greengrass making a movie about that Alicia Vikander character. Matt Damon can pop up. He can be like Leonard Nimoy in Star Trek.
Sure,
yeah. And just be kind of there in the background.
He can do the cool action scenes when you need the cool action scenes.
But yeah, no, I mean, but outside of that, I thought this movie was awfully written. I think the dialogue is terrible.
There are some pretty clunker scenes in this movie. Like, holy shit.
I hate some of the plot twists. I think they fundamentally misunderstand the Jason Bourne character here, which is amazing when you think of how fundamentally they understood him last time around.
Yeah.
And I think Matt Damon is stranded and has nothing to do. I thought for the first hour or so, I was like, well, at least it's really technically impressive. And I was not even thinking that by the end. I think the action in this movie is, outside of like the Athens scene at the beginning, which is incredible, I think a lot of it is very flaccid and uninteresting.
Sure.
I think that it indulges in some Hollywood plot archetypes that I hate at this moment in time.
Right.
And we'll have to talk about those. So, very mixed bag, not at all horrible as a movie necessarily. As a Jason Bourne movie, it's very disappointing, and I think on that level, this is something I tweeted. I don't think it is better than the Bourne Legacy. I don't think it's so significantly better that you can really separate the two, though.
Okay.
And that is a disappointing thing to me.
Right.
Because at the end of the day, I can at least watch the Bourne Legacy and go, I can tell you what the plot was. I can tell you from point A to B what the Jeremy Renner character was trying to accomplish and what he did.
Right.
I couldn't even begin to tell you what Jason Bourne's motivations were, what he accomplished, what the movie thought they were doing thematically or narratively. I walked out of that movie just going, huh.
I think there is something it is doing thematically and narratively. I just think it's very bad at getting that. Like, it's very clumsy. But I think there is something there at its core.
I get
it just,
that.
Can't get at it because it feels like at some point, this is I didn't want me to do this, but here we go. The Bourne legacy on this movie is holding it down, right?
Yeah.
And it can't quite figure out how to completely shed it, and that's the biggest flaw the movie has.
Yeah. No, it's okay. If you've heard all the puns I've made on the title of this movie in the last week accidentally, where I will say Jason Bourne and then I'll say the word again, and now I'm thinking of the Evangelist Christian movie where Jason Bourne is Jason Bourne again.
Right.
Yeah. I think that's where they take it next. The Christian audience is huge.
Yeah, I mean, it's a surefire way to get some money, or if you fuck it up, to get them just protesting your movie.
Free advertising.
I mean, they're very passionate.
Yes.
Either way.
Get Mel Gibson to direct it. The Passion of the Bourne.
Sure.
All right, so, God, I was going to make a really bad joke there.
Yeah,
I might as well.
No.
He uncovers the Zionist conspiracy this time.
Okay, sure.
There we go, see?
Yeah.
Okay. Mel Gibson's racist. That's really the point.
Yeah.
All right, let's move on. We're going to talk about some news and stuff later, and we'll get into Jason Bourne more. But I want to start with just some random stuff. And I actually have a cool thing that I just did.
Okay.
But to make a long story short, I bought a new PS Vita.
Okay, I wasn't expecting this. What a plot twist.
This was a weirdly expensive week for me.
Okay, yeah.
So I wanted to play my Vita. As you do.
As you do, yeah.
Really, actually, the first thing I wanted it for was just I wanted to play I Am Setsuna on remote play to do some grinding.
Okay,
and that didn't work.
Sense.
And then I found out I could remote play on my Mac, and that was cool too.
Oh, yeah, you can.
That works really well. But I couldn't find my Vita charger. And I looked and I looked and I looked. It's just gone. It's just gone. I think someone in my house got rid of it or something.
That happened to me once with an old cell phone charger. This is before the days of smartphones, where my brother took it on accident, even though it didn't work with his phone. He just grabbed it and then went to a party up in Boulder when I was still in high school, and I never saw that cell phone again. I looked all those years I was up in Boulder in school. I was really actually just trying to find my old cell phone charger. It never came back.
Nice.
Son of a bitch.
Yeah, so this isn't coming back, and it was not alone that I didn't have a charger that I bought a new Vita, but one of the complications of this was I'm like, okay, I'm going to go buy a new charger. And usually that is the simplest thing on earth.
Sure, yeah.
You cannot get a Vita charger.
Huh.
It is so... Sony used to manufacture them. They don't anymore. So you can kind of get them secondhand, but they're expensive.
Right.
Or you can go third party, but all the Amazon reviews were like, it broke my Vita. And
third party chargers are dangerous things.
So I didn't want to do that. And so I was just, for a while, I was looking on eBay. I could not find a fucking charger for this thing. And it's so weird because... obviously, this is a general annoyance of proprietary chargers.
Yeah.
And I'm talking about the old fat Vita. Which, the new one has a micro USB, which I love. I'll talk about that in a second. But the old fat Vita, proprietary charger. And that can be annoying, but at least when you buy an iPhone, it's not hard to get a lightning cable.
Yeah.
There are plenty of lightning cables out there. You can get one for $3 on Amazon. It is not a hazard to owning an iPhone.
Yeah.
Or with the Nintendo 3DS, you can buy $1 million different, USB cables for your 3DS. It's not hard. GameStop makes them wherever you want to get them. You can get third party. They won't brick your fucking system.
Right.
It's easy to get. For some reason, the Vita just doesn't have that.
It just kind of feels like it's maybe a bit too late for the Vita market. Like, the Vita is an old console at this point.
No, I get it, but it's bizarre to me.
Yeah.
So, but I'd always kind of wanted to get a new Vita because when I first got mine, it was used, and it's had a bunch of problems. Like, the screen just had some smudges I've never been able to get off. It was a 3G model, and for whatever reason... So I just ripped the SIM card out immediately, but so it always says no SIM in the corner, and the Wi-Fi is really fucking weak on it.
Oh, okay.
Like, it takes hours to download stuff. It's very bad on that level. And then I've had some other issues with it. So I'm like, fuck it. I like my Vita a lot. It's got all these Persona games.
Yeah.
And they got this new Vita Slim. I'm going to try it out.
Okay.
They had it on Amazon. Fuck it. Got it in.
Did you get in like a really cool color?
No, they only have black.
Because when they launched that thing, it was in a bunch of cool colors.
Not in America, I think just in Japan. You can't.
Japan always gets all the fucking cool colors.
No,
damn it.
I did look at it. For about $50 more, I could have gotten one of the cool colors.
Yeah, but that's not worth it.
No, yeah. And it would have been a Japanese system, which I don't mind. You can switch it to English.
Yeah.
I know enough katakana to go through the menus. And yeah. But no, I got it in, and the only thing that had been holding me back from upgrading, frankly, was there's this whole controversy with the original Vita. The Fat has an OLED screen that's like really nice, and the new Vita, the Slim, has just an LCD screen.
Yeah,
and it's not a problem. Mm-hmm. I played it for about half an hour tonight. It's totally fine. I was scared because people made a big fucking deal of this online.
Yeah,
it looks the same. For one, it's not just some shitty LCD screen. It's an IPS. It's nice. It kind of looks like maybe not the newest iPhone, but like the 4 or the 5 or something. Nice iPhone. It's totally fine. I can tell ways in which it is different, but I wouldn't necessarily say it's inferior. Like, the colors are different, and I've heard some people describe it as washed out. I don't think they're washed out. I think they're cooler, and they look like LCD colors, which frankly look more natural than I think OLED colors. And I'm not saying one is better than the other. But, the first thing I did was I launched Persona 4 The Golden, watched the opening movie, went into an old save file. It's like, I've spent 80 fucking hours staring at this thing.
Right.
It looks like the Vita screen. It looks like Persona 4. It's perfectly fine.
Yeah.
And then everything else on the system is better. All the buttons they've improved, or the ones that were already perfect, like the D-pad, just done enough to, enhance them a little bit. And then there's big improvements, like the old home screen button and the start and select on the Fat Vita are terrible. They're
they're so flush with the system that they're really hard to press.
No, they're normal circular buttons now. They're great.
Okay, yeah.
There's the volume up and the power, all of that is better. It's easier to kind of get to the ports when you need to put in a card or something. So that's nice, and it is dramatically thinner and lighter. And I didn't think I've never had a problem with the size or weight of the original Vita.
Yeah.
But this, you hold, it's okay. I didn't know they could do this, but it's pretty cool. And there's a lot more kind of matte finish on the back, so that's nice. They've kind of decreased the space enough of the rear touchpad that I don't think it'll be a problem of brushing up against it in times you don't want to. So that's nice. It's a huge improvement, and it charges with micro USB, so I can never run into the charging problem again.
Yeah.
That's
Until
great.
micro USB cables, we just destroy all of them. It's a cultural war against micro USB.
I think I have enough just lying around my fucking house. That
some of those types of cables, you just accumulate and you don't even know how it happened.
Yeah.
I literally have a box in our storage room that about a month ago, I just collected all these cables and organized them, and we had probably 7 micro USB cables just lying around the house in random little corners.
No, and I mean it's I have them for everything because the Xbox One controller charges off it, the PS4 charges off it. My Kindle charges off it. This charges off it. My phone doesn't, but that's fine.
Right.
So almost everything else. So that's nice, and yeah. So it's nicer. I haven't spent a ton of time with it. I played 5 minutes of Persona 4 just to run around, and then I got scared because I wanted to play the whole thing.
Yeah, it feels like it's 5 minutes is about the limit before you are just starting a new game of Persona 4, and there's no returning from that.
Especially because on that save, I started right next to Marie, and I could talk to Marie, and I'm like, oh god, Marie's my favorite. I want to play this game.
Yeah.
So instead, I just played some Persona 4 Dancing all night, did a couple songs.
Fuck yeah.
It's great, looks good.
I load that up every now and then and play through a couple songs.
Also, Persona 4 Dancing all night confirmed the system sounds better too. The onboard speakers, they're not phenomenal or anything.
Right, yeah.
They do sound better than the original Vita. They're much louder. They're a little clearer. That's nice.
Yeah, I think I've maybe listened to 3 minutes total of sound coming out of just the speakers on my Vita. I always use headphones.
I'm so lazy. I often just, on my 3DS and Vita, I mean, when I really care about something like dancing all night, the headphones, obviously.
Yeah.
But just a lot of the time,
I feel like I'm either using headphones or I just have the system on mute. It's like, it's one of the extremes for me. It's the same with like my phone.
Yeah. But no, it's a really nice upgrade. I mean, this upgrade came out back in 2014, so I know it's not particularly relevant. But just because I feel like if people are like worried at all about that thing about the new Vita, like if you have an old Vita you need to replace or something, the new one is totally fine.
Yeah. People did make a really big deal out of the OLED screen being replaced, but
it's honestly, for a screen of that resolution and everything, I don't think OLED does all that much.
Yeah.
And this it's bright, it's colorful, the resolution is identical, so all the text and stuff looks the same.
Yeah.
The only thing where I noticed any kind of like downgrade at all was I played a little of Persona 3 Portable. I checked that too to look what a PSP game looks like.
Right.
And just like slightly, it doesn't look quite as good. Yeah. But that's hard anyway. That's a PSP thing. They're up-resing and all that stuff. It still looks very good for what they're doing with it.
Yeah.
I also checked Final Fantasy 3, which is technically a PSP game, and that looks just fine. So it's really cool, and I've gotten all my folders back and everything. The other thing, I've talked before about like when I have to replace my Nintendo systems, what a fucking hassle it is to just get my games back on it. And my saves, and it's like a project.
Yeah, it's like you have to go like contact the president of Nintendo of America.
Yeah,
to have him authorize a transfer.
Here's how it works on the Vita.
Yeah, how does it work?
I popped out my memory card.
I
put it in the system. I popped out Persona 4 Dancing All Night, which is the only game I have on a cartridge. I put that in the system. I started it. I just had to sign in and authorize the console, and I was done.
Wow,
that was it.
Man, I can't believe it. It feels like Sony is really innovating on like this sort of like. Just having all of your stuff associated with like an account that isn't dedicated to any piece of physical hardware, because that's an insane fucking thing to do.
I have some other things to talk about.
Okay.
While we're on games, I finished I Am Setsuna.
Oh, cool.
I mentioned that earlier.
Yeah.
I mentioned last week I was very high on this game. I thought it was really beautiful. The music is just so incredible. A very good story, very moving story. The ending of I Am Setsuna is one of the greatest video game endings I've ever seen.
Cool.
Like, there is an image, like kind of the climactic image of the game, you'll know it when you see it, that is up there for me with the climactic image of Persona 3, in terms of one that just sticks in my head. If I were ever to see something like that image again, it will take me to that moment.
Right.
So, like, you know how the Persona 3, the movie number 3, ends with just that little hint at the image?
Yeah.
You could do that with I Am Setsuna, and it would be the same kind of emotional impact. That game has a phenomenal ending to the degree where it really does rise the rest of the game with it. Cool. Up until that point, I would say it's a very good JRPG. It becomes something really special because of that ending and because of how hard they nail it.
Yeah, cool. I'll definitely check that one out. Like, because I was thinking about when I was thinking about getting a new game this past week, and I was looking at I Am Setsuna, and I'm not quite in the JRPG mood, especially with Final Fantasy 15 right around the corner. But I'll definitely check it out at some point.
Yeah, and it's a JRPG light. It's 20 hours. It's not a huge commitment, and it's the Chrono Trigger battle system, so it's not like something newfangled and crazy, and I like that about it. It handles the battle stuff very well. And I don't think the game's perfect. Near the end, I do think some of the stuff leading up to the ending is too long and a little too grindy at parts. Again, this is JRPG 101 problems, but whatever. Yeah. But I would say that's a little flaw, and I think the story just gets a little choppy there for those reasons. But again, once you get to the actual ending and it snaps together, it's so perfect you just forget about that stuff. It's a very special game. It's a great throwback while also feeling like something new and very different and completely its own thing. And I just, the name Tokyo RPG Factory sounds really...
It's the greatest developer name ever. It's so perfect.
Yes. It sounds like really dystopian. I'm really excited to see what these guys do next, because this is such a special thing that if they can, if their goal is to kind of take RPG mechanics from the past, but, put their own spin on it and do something new with it, that is so exciting, and this is such a first-rate game from a new studio. I'm so excited to see what they do next. And I love that Square Enix is using their powers for good and just giving a little team the money to do something like this and the resources.
Yeah, it's like while the Japanese side of Square Enix is just like, one side of it is just furiously pumping away at Final Fantasy 15, and it has been for like 8 years. And then they just have all these little studios just like making stuff like Bravely Default, Bravely Second, I Am Setsuna, and like all these smaller RPGs that are sort of leaking out that everyone, like most people, seem very impressed by. It's nice that those smaller JRPGs that harken back to the old days can still have a market now and like be impressive today.
Yep. And again, the best thing about I Am Setsuna is the music. 100% having finished the game, this is the soundtrack of the year for me. And
cool.
some of that just comes down to how much I love that it's a solo piano thing. And I know your mileage will vary, how much you kind of have a tolerance and an interest in that kind of piano-driven score. But I found every minute of it moving. The music at the end of the game is just fucking phenomenal. And it's that alone, I mean, this is one of my favorite games of the year. This is another one where I can put in the pile of, I could make this number one this year.
Okay.
And there's like 5 of those this year.
Yeah.
What the hell?
I feel like we've been saying this since, the fabled dawn of Digimon Story Cyber Sleuth, but this is a really good year for video games.
It fucking is. A good year for Japanese video games at the moment, too.
Yeah.
Just you look at how many great Japanese video games there have been. So that's awesome. And I have two more games to talk about.
Okay.
Little things. One is, I'm kind of going in out of order here, but Abzu just launched on the PS4 this week.
Yeah.
Launched Tuesday. I started playing it Monday night because of the preloading stuff. And I really only had the chance to play through 2 or 3 levels. Amazing game. Beautiful design and graphics. I've never seen anything like it. This is one of the most beautiful games you can get on the PS4. It is literally jaw-dropping. It starts and you think, wow, I haven't seen a game make use of like the Wind Waker aesthetic this heavily in a while.
Right.
And then you get like into the sea and you're like, oh, this is what the Wii U can't do.
Right,
because I'm thinking of Wind Waker HD when I look at like the clouds, and then you get into it and I'm like, Jesus, like the particles and the lighting and the amount of stuff going on screen, it's incredible. And you can very much tell it's the lead art designer from games like Journey and Flower and things like that.
Yeah.
Just stunning. It's Austin Wintory doing the musical score. Equally stunning. This is another just soundtrack of the year contender.
Right.
It is not a game so far with real plot to me or very deep mechanics in terms of like challenging gameplay. And for me, it does not need that at all. It is this pure aesthetic experience. The reason for the game is to be inside the game, and I really like stuff like that. This is in the same category of things to me like Proteus almost or something like that. This is much more. It has a lot more direction than a Proteus,
right.
But I get a similar feeling where it's like the point of this is just to be in the game. And there are technically goals to get to, but there's also just a lot of parts where they're very clearly encouraging you, just swim around and hang out. And I'm totally fine with that. And I've seen some mixed reviews, and I can see, I think it's totally a matter of preference whether you have tolerance for this.
It seems like it'd be a really hard game to review. It's just like, it's so outside the scope of what most games are trying to be.
Yeah, I really actually, Polygon had a good review of it because their first line was that. They said it's tough to review.
Yeah, Justin McElroy wrote that one.
Yeah.
He's a good reviewer.
Yeah, so, I really liked it. I would definitely recommend it if that's your cup of tea. A lot of people are making comparisons to Journey. So far, I would say a better comparison is something like Flower or like Entwined, which is not the same people but very clearly inspired. It's a PS4 exclusive, where it really is sort of this series of levels that are sort of rifts on the same visual themes and everything. And kind of, it's formulaic at a certain point, but I don't think in a bad way. And it's, it's not thematically heavy-handed, though, in the way we were talking before the show about, like, Flower is.
Yeah, Flower's got, for anyone who's played Flower, like, by the time you get to the end level of Flower, it's just like, I fucking get it, guys! Like, civilization is bad and nature is good. Like, holy shit, yeah. I didn't think that a game with no dialogue would be this fucking heavy-handed.
And it's also not as loose as Entwined, which is really just a visual thing with a light, almost, Fantasia-esque story going on.
Right.
And we'll see. Maybe the deeper I get into it, there's more to it that I don't know about, but I'm really excited to play more of it.
Are you really excited to plumb the depths of Abzu? There's your review tagline for you.
I suppose so. It's a game you have to be in the right headspace for.
Yeah.
I didn't play any yesterday. Part of that was I was doing other things. Part of that was I was in the headspace for a different game, which is Stardew Valley.
Oh, okay.
Finally came out for Mac. I'm playing that. I don't know if I like this game yet, but I've played 12 hours in the last week.
Oh, okay. I thought the continuation of that sentence was going to be, but I've only played 2 hours, and then I was going to say, well, it seems to me like those kinds of games are sort of slow starts. You need to get into the systems.
It's a slow start. I don't know if I really like it. I can't stop playing it. It's very addictive. It's basically, I would describe it as Harvest Moon meets Minecraft or Terraria.
That sounds terrifying.
It's very addictive. So, you farm, you plant your crops, all of that. You can go out into the town and talk with people. Eventually you can marry them. So that's all very Harvest Moon-esque. But then there is mining and crafting, and you go...
Isn't there like a weird dungeon or something?
Yes, there's a big mine that you go into, and you can kind of go further and further down, and that's where you get your copper and your ores and stuff like that. Which I think I was supposed to discover on like day 3, and I discovered on like day 70 or something.
Oh.
So I was just busy with other shit in the game. And finally I was like, I need to make a fucking furnace. How do I need copper bars. Where do I get the copper bars? Oh, there's that mine, and I had a quest for it like 10 hours ago.
It's like the old man standing outside my house at the beginning of the game told me, you should go down this mine. I just never had the time.
Well, it's a weird thing, like, where the mine is like... So you have your farm, and I think the town itself is always the same. I don't think it's like a procedurally generated thing.
Yeah, that probably not.
No.
Yeah,
so
weird.
your farm is sort of on the far left side of the map, and it's nice, got a good amount of space. But then the mine is up on like the top right side of the map, and there's no quick travel thing. And so every day you want to mine, you got to get all the way over there. And I don't love that about it. That's a weird thing. It would be like if in Minecraft you couldn't just like start mining anywhere, and you had to like walk halfway across the world and
go to the designated mining spots.
Yeah. And so I don't mind it being a designated spot. I just think like, why isn't it near my farm?
Yeah.
So I don't know, but there's clearly like there are so many systems I haven't even engaged with. It very much reminds me of like the early days of Minecraft, where the in-game tutorializing is as minimal as possible.
Right.
So you're going to be looking up wikis a lot to kind of figure certain systems out.
Yeah.
But it's fun. There's a basic gameplay loop of just, planting your crops and caring for them and getting money for it and kind of figuring out those systems. It's very relaxing. I've played it while I'm watching TV or doing other things, and that's kind of, you can use 30% of your brain and play it.
Right.
I don't know if there's enough. A lot of it, though, is just I think I'm playing it a lot because it's a compelling grind. I don't know if it's a compelling game.
Yeah.
Which is, and it's a weird thing because I do think when I've played Minecraft before, obviously I think that's a very compelling game. I love that game.
Sure.
And it's not just a grind to me. And I know some people might think differently, or some
As
people...
someone who spent some time watching you play Minecraft, it sure looked like a fucking grind, but...
Well, for whatever reason, and I think it's just because of the sort of 3D freedom of it, if you feel like you have a goal and everything, Minecraft can be very liberating. Also, I can't discount the co-op component of Minecraft.
Yeah.
Which this does not have. And I've also played a little Harvest Moon as a kid, and that didn't feel the same way of grindy to me at all either. So, I don't know, but it's it's a game that looks very nice. It kind of looks like the nicest Super NES game that never came out for the Super NES.
Right.
Looks and sounds like a Super NES game. And it's got some good, character to it. It, runs very well on my Mac, and I'm sure it does on anything else. So it's a good port.
It does not seem like a processor intensive kind of program.
No, you always worry with a port of that kind of thing.
Right?
So,
Yeah.
Because hey, Telltale's been doing this forever, and they can't get their fucking Batman game to work.
Yeah. Maybe there's just something about Batman and PC ports. He just, PCs killed his parents in an alleyway when he was a kid. He's just never been good with them.
It was Bill Gates was the mugger.
Yeah, exactly. Bill Gates just shows up, asks, have you ever danced with the devil in the pale moonlight, and fucking gats his parents.
I'd watch that.
Just never recovered.
Man, I'm a little surprised that Batman v Superman didn't do that, where like Jesse Eisenberg somehow killed his parents, as annoying Lex Luthor.
He time traveled through the Flash, the portal that Flash opened in the weird, non sequitur middle section of Batman v Superman, killed Batman's parents. That's probably the plot line of Justice League, I just realized.
They could still do that. We did not see the killer.
That is totally the plot line of the Justice League movie.
Okay.
Sorry to spoil it for you, Zach.
Yeah. Well, anyway. So, it's a weird thing where I could not review this game. If you want to play it, at $15, totally worth it. There's a ton you can do with it. It is very charming, low-key. It's a nice thing to just kind of relax with.
Yeah.
Not wowing me on the level some of these other games are, but you know what? In a year where we've got sort of like masterpiece after masterpiece, I'm okay with just kind of a chill-out indie game.
Sure, yeah.
I'm really okay with that.
Yeah.
It's nice to not have the pressure of like, where do I put this on my top 10?
Yeah, you're not playing this in the back of your head. It's like, oh, fuck, what am I going to do at the end of the year?
Yeah. All right, well, that's some of my game stuff. I have a few other things to talk about, but why don't you go with your game stuff?
Okay, yeah. So like I said earlier, when you were talking about I Am Setsuna, I have been, this past week, there was a night where I sat down and I was like, I don't have any video games to play right now. I've basically gone through a lot of my backlog. I played, Valiant Hearts, I played Gravity Rush, I played this, that, and the other thing. I played a lot of games, and it's like, I just feel like I want to play something new. I was looking at I Am Sets, and I'm like, I don't feel like I can play a JRPG right now. Final Fantasy 15 is coming out soon. Like, Persona 5 is coming out after that. Like, I can't play another JRPG right now. I already played fucking the shit out of Digimon Story Cyber at the beginning of the year, and it's hard to put, like 3 JRPGs played through in 1 year is too much for me. I feel like that would start taking off, like, minutes of my life.
And sometimes it's not even the time element, it's just how much you pour yourself into it.
Yeah, it's the style of game is very sort of, I think, mentally taxing. That it's like, I just can't... It's not like, I could play, like, sort of, like, mediocre first-person shooter campaign one after the other and, like melt my brain and I wouldn't really notice. It's like, you can't play a JRPG without really paying attention to it at some point because of the story element. So I kind of passed on I Am Setsuna. I was thinking about, Abzu was almost out. I was like, maybe I'll just get that, but I've got to play through that in like 2 hours, and that's not really going to solve the problem of I want a video game that I can come back to when I have some free time to just dig into. And then I noticed, that Hitman game came out. Like, all the video game people I follow on Twitter love this Hitman game. I really liked the beta when I played it earlier this year. Fuck it, I'll just buy this fucking Hitman game. So I bought the Hitman game. That Hitman game is really fucking good.
I want to play it. I don't know when I'm going to. How many episodes are out?
So basically, they're halfway through. There are 3 main maps, and not including the tutorial maps, and then one sort of like bonus episode that they just released like around the time when I got it, which is they sort of took 2 of their maps and kind of sectioned off smaller pieces and like reworked them in interesting ways. Like, one of them takes one of this Sapienza map and sort of cuts out a section of it and turns that section into a movie set where you are assigned to assassinate the lead actor of the movie who's in an Iron Man suit, and they're filming this big action scene. So, like, the ways you can kill him in that sequence are so amazing. Like, you can replace the fire, like, prop thing with, like, a, like, big, fat, like, fire tank or, like, propellant tank that just, like, lights him on fire and kills him. You can mess with the hydraulics for this, like, hydraulic launcher and, like, launch him into this big, like, prop robot thing with big teeth, and he gets chomped up by the teeth. It's that bonus map is really good. So that's the stuff they've released, and then they've showed the locations for the next 3 maps are Japan, USA, and I think Thailand. I don't remember what the third one is.
That's cool.
Yeah, but so like with so I'm kind of jumping in at the middle of their release cycle. And for those who don't really know what this Hitman game is, it's obviously it's based on the Hitman franchise, which is a series of sort of like stealth, like pseudo stealth puzzle games almost, where you're basically assigned with, you have to kill these targets, you are dropped into a big open sort of like sandbox map, and there's a bunch of different ways that you can kill the targets, either like sort of like more scripted, unique kills that you can do, like the aforementioned replace the fire prop thing to light the guy on fire, or you can just like sneak into a secluded area and like find a sniper rifle somewhere and shoot them and do a sort of more like Hitman-like hit on them. But it's all a game that is about sort of like exploration and creativity and trying to navigate these big, complex, beautiful maps and find unique, interesting ways to sort of like engage with the targets and then take them out in different ways. And so I've never really jumped into a Hitman game that much. I played a bit of Blood Money and didn't really get into it when that launched in the early 360s life. And so this is the first one I've really gotten into. And like with I talked about a lot when I played the beta, one of the things I like about this is, one, the business model I think is awesome, where it's sort of a pseudo-episodic game where every month or so they have released a different map that gives you time to sort of like dig into the map, like really like see what's there, and it encourages you to replay the game because you can't beat the game yet, right? So like I've played through all the maps once, and now I've gone back to the beginning and I'm playing through and getting all the challenges and exploring them more deeply. And if they had just dropped the whole game at once and I like just played through each mission one after another, and then got to the end of the game and saw the end of the story, I don't know if I would do that. So like making it so you can't just like beat the game and psychologically tell yourself that you're finished allows you the freedom in a weird way to like really go back and explore the game and not feel like you're almost like wasting time, which is what I sometimes feel like when I'm like replaying games too much. I feel, I should be like watching a movie I haven't seen or reading a book I haven't read or playing a game I haven't played yet kind of thing. So, yeah, with this Hitman game, that business model, combined with them putting in some systems that kind of guide you a little bit, is really helpful, especially on like your first playthrough in a map. I really like being able to go in and find some of the unique opportunities, they call them, which are like unique kill opportunities that are like the fire one, or like on one of my favorite ones is on the Marrakesh map. You have to like infiltrate this embassy to kill one of your targets, and he's has like this appointment with a masseuse to give you a massage, or to give him a massage. So if you find the masseuse before the appointment, knock him out and take his clothes and disguise yourself as him, you can give the guy a massage, and while he is talking, every single sentence while you're giving him the massage that he says to you is like specifically designed to be really cool if you kill him. Like it's like always like some ironic thing he says about like, man, I'm really looking forward to my vacation next week, and then you snap his head, that kind of thing. Like, so those sort of opportunities when you encounter like the sort of some like clue in the environment of like, oh, there's an appointment that this guy has with this masseuse, it will then pop up on your map a waypoint that directs you to the next stage in that sort of unique assassination. And I found that is something that the old Hitman games did not have, that this one allows you to sort of, especially the first time you go through these maps, is so intimidating because they're so dense and there's so much stuff and you have no idea like how to approach the scenario, that your first time through just like following those and like getting this cool kill feels very satisfying, and then it opens it up for that. Now that I'm going through the Paris map, which is the first one, now I don't need to use that stuff. I know the map so well. I know all these secret ways to like get up to the third floor of this building without anyone knowing and stuff like that. That I just think this is a great game, and I'm having a great time with it. I think it's, if people who have not jumped into the Hitman franchise before, I think this is an awesome place to jump in on.
I'd love to play this game if I had time.
Yeah. But I mean, the other nice thing about that business model is that it is the kind of game where it feels like you can just keep on coming back to it. And that's one of the reasons why I wanted to jump in, is because also they have been doing all these like sort of like timed unique missions with called elusive targets and all this stuff that just seemed like it's a sort of thing. It has a fun community around it that is engaging with these releases as they come out, and this sort of unique content they release timed that is like time exclusive. So if you don't do this hit, the elusive target hit when it's open, you kind of miss it. And that, seeing that sort of like community building is one of the things that made me really want to jump in on it now instead of waiting until the game's done, you know?
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's really cool.
Awesome.
Yeah.
I'm really glad that game's good. And
yeah.
I'm a little sad. Honestly, the reason I hadn't jumped in yet is because, well, I also, I think, follow some of the same people you do on Twitter, and
right.
I've seen them, being, raving about it here and there. The game's press itself has barely talked about this game.
Yeah, it feels like it's something where the game's press almost doesn't know how to talk about it because of how, like, the unique the business model is.
It is, and I think that's the one area where the business model has fucked them a little bit, is just on that marketing promotion in terms of reviews and hype is a little lessened, and this just happens with this kind of thing.
Yeah.
But also, there's never been an episodic game quite like this, which is a AAA episodic game,
Yeah, and like the style of, where it just feels like when I see like IGN release a review of like the Marrakesh map, it feels like this just doesn't feel like what is this, like who is this review serving? It just feels like the review cycle model doesn't really apply to what this game is doing. It's not like a Telltale game.
But it's tough, because I just kind of forget about it, and then I haven't jumped in, and then No Man's Sky comes out next week, and I've already got that pre-ordered, and blah, blah, blah. So, I would love to try it out at some point. And and I'm assuming, like, even if you can't play it, like, while it's still all releasing, you'd still recommend play it at some point.
Oh, yeah, definitely. I mean, because, like, while there is some sort of that fun, sort of, like, timed stuff with playing it as its stuff's coming out, like, the game is just fantastic. In particular, the second map they released, which is a map called Sapienza, is maybe the best, like, just big, dense, like, sandbox level I've ever played in a video game. Like, it is so huge, and there's so much stuff and so many weird intertwining paths that, like, the first time I played through that level, like, you basically, like, both of my targets were still in the mansion, and you can get them to move out, but, like, so I, like, spent all this time in this big mansion with a huge, like, underground cavern area and all this shit, and then I went back to do some other stuff in that map, and I realized, oh, I only was on, like, half of the map. There's this whole, like, road that leads down here with all these alleys and all these shops and, like, a church and a cemetery over here and this whole, like, beachhead area that the first time I was through this map, I thought that beach was just in the background. It's like, no, you could go down this road and actually go there, and there are unique kills that, like, you can get your targets to go to that area of the map and kill them over there. Like, that shit is crazy. Like, I've never seen a map like that in a game before.
Wow.
It's really good. So, yeah.
That sounds
like,
cool.
Like, that, the other two maps are not quite at that level of Sapiens. I hope one of the next three ones at least it reaches quite that level, but that Sapienza one is fucking incredible.
Might have spoiled you early on that one.
Yeah, maybe. Like, it just feels like... Because the Marrakesh map, which is the one after that one, is the weakest of the three, so that was a bit disappointing, but...
But it's pretty ambitious what they're trying to do with those different open... it seems like a lot of games would just pick one of those and that would be the game.
Yeah, like, almost, like, you could see... Because, like, really, that Sapienza map, I don't know if you can, just buy that and only play that. I'm not sure how, because I just bought the whole package so that I get all the content as it releases. But if you can just play the Sapienza map, fuck it. That is the one to play. If you can, buy that for 10 or 15 bucks, I would do that if you don't necessarily want to commit to the whole game yet.
Awesome. And then you saw a TV show that everyone else is talking about, so you might as well talk about it.
Yeah, so... About 2 weeks ago, I guess, that Stranger Things show launched on Netflix with their whole, we're just going to drop the whole thing at once model. And it's an 8-episode, I guess, kind of miniseries feel to it that is just like I was going to say, it's heavily inspired by, but it's so heavily inspired by so many things that it's almost like stupid to list it all out, but it's inspired by John Carpenter, Steven Spielberg, Stephen King. It's just a whole litany of sort of sci-fi horror, kid movie stuff from the 80s. The Goonies is another big influence.
It's late 70s, all of the 80s.
Yeah,
family-based horror stuff.
Yeah, it's E.T. is a good sort of reference point for the kid side of the story, but it's a very big sort of ensemble show. It almost has a pseudo Twin Peaks feel to it as well, because the main plot of the movie or of the series is that there's this group of kids and they are all playing D&D because they're really cool kids in the 80s, and then one of them is going home and he disappears, and then they're in this sort of small sleepy town in the United States that also happens to have this secret kind of shadowy government base on there that are doing weird secrety experiments that is probably related to how this kid just disappeared. And so the local sheriff is sort of investigating the disappearance. The mom of the kid that disappeared is kind of going crazy. His friends are trying to find him, and this whole sort of town starts unraveling while all these different groups are trying to figure out what's going on around this missing kid and rescue him and figure out why he went missing. What is all this weird shit that's going on with this secret government organization in the town? And there's a monster on the loose and all this stuff. And it is just people probably know because everyone was talking about the show when it came out, but it really is an absolutely fantastic show. I think I recommend everyone watch it. It has only one very slightly problematic, I guess, subplot, which is so minor to only have one of those in an American TV show for me, that actually that is that sort of weird B subplot that feels you could have cut this out, but it does. I think it sticks around for maybe one episode too long, but they do end up wrapping it back around to the main story, so it ends up working for me.
How long is it?
It's 8 episodes long. Each episode is between 45 minutes and an hour, kind of how Daredevil did the same thing where it doesn't have a prescribed episode length. So it's it's a good sort of meaty length. I ended up watching it every night with my parents. We'd watch 2 episodes and then wait for the next day, and that was a fun way to watch it. I just think it's it is really fun. It's really well written, really well directed. The child actors who sort of make up, there's sort of 4 child actors that make up, I would say, the main group of characters, and all of them are just unbelievably good. There's in particular, I don't remember what her name is, but there's one girl who's this 12-year-old girl who plays a character named Elle, who is just unbelievable. Her performance is incredible. So I just think if you are someone who likes that sort of genre of that kind of 80s sci-fi horror stuff, this is just a must-watch thing. It's incredible.
I love the net. There are some problems I have with the Netflix model, but my favorite thing about it is this kind of thing where they will just drop a show out of nowhere. This did not have a lot of pre-release hype, and it comes out, and then it gets discovered, and people love it. Yeah. And it's actually, I watched a Netflix show this week, and this is an older one that just had a new season, but BoJack Horseman, the 3rd season just came out. I just finished that. But that was in its first season like that, where it really didn't have a lot of pre-release hype. It came out. Some critics dismissed it because, honestly, and I think a lot of those critics will admit it, they just didn't get it in the first 3 episodes, which is, I think, what was sent. But then it just kind of got this steamroller effect of people watched it and realized this is something so special. And I like that about Netflix because, even some of their shows and I've not seen a lot of this show, but like Orange is the New Black, that came out in the shadow of House of Cards, and I don't think there's a person on earth who would tell you it's not a better show than House of Cards.
Right.
And that first year of Netflix originals, it was the underdog. So that's the special thing about Netflix for me, is when you get these kind of just special things that no one else is making.
Yeah, and it is something that it feels like, it's one of the really cool things about this era of television we're in, is that like, a show like Stranger Things feels like it could not have been made under like the traditional TV model, even with like something like HBO would not be able to make this kind of show. It just feels so unique and weird, and the sort of the main creative forces behind it are these guys named the Duffer Brothers. That as far as I was looking them up, and they've made like a couple of small horror movies, and that's about it. And like, they just like put out this incredible 8-episode miniseries, like you said, that didn't really get a lot of hype or marketing beforehand. But since enough people have Netflix subscription, it can come out, like the trailer can come out, people can watch the trailer, and then they can just watch this show, and it like hooks you from like minute one, because the show starts with what may be the best D&D scene I've ever seen in like fictional drama. Like, they so perfectly capture that sense of like young kids playing D&D, and it's like so note perfect in the writing and the performances that I feel like usually when you watch a D&D scene in something, it feels like when you watch someone playing video games on like a movie or TV show, where it's like, it's so corny and exaggerated, and feels like it was written by some guy who knew a guy who saw someone once play D&D, and this was like that, like the whole thing feels incredibly authentic, and through the like awesome D&D scene from the beginning to the awesome D&D scene in the last episode, it's like it just feels authentic. It feels like their inspirations are authentic, and they take so many inspirations and influences from so many things that at some point it just feels like it's wholly original, because it just takes everything and mixes it up and like puts twists on every single individual element and just comes out with something brand new.
It's kind of like the Quentin Tarantino effect to me.
Yeah, in some ways.
If you pastiche hard enough and you have your own voice, it's not just empty homage.
Yeah, it becomes its own sort of like unique entity at some point. That's definitely what Stranger Things feels like to me.
Well, I'll have to check this out, definitely.
Yeah, it's a great show.
It's a great and sometimes scary thing about Netflix is there's like no barrier to entry on any of this.
Yeah.
It's not like, cable dramas where you have to own 10 different packages under your fucking satellite system to watch it. So that's awesome. But BoJack Horseman, I'll also mention a Netflix show, the third season of that series, it is one of the best seasons of TV I've ever seen.
Cool.
And I think people who have not seen BoJack Horseman think everyone who watches it and praises it is just silly. It's like, isn't that the Talking Horse show?
Right.
It is the Talking Horse show. It's about a bunch of talking animals and people who coexist. And they think about this sometimes in weird ways, where like season 2 is about how they get meat in this world, and it's that they find like basically retarded chickens and abuse them, and then they try to get one of the chickens to escape. This is the kind of show it is. It's very silly and out there sometimes.
Right.
It is also TV's deepest dive into depression and narcissism and the sort of culture that of like loneliness in places like Hollywood and of celebrity that is on anywhere in the TV landscape right now. All those feelings, some of which are very universal, some of which are specific to sort of the celebrity Hollywood landscape, but all of which we can relate to. It is both of those things at once, and it can be both of those things because both of those things exist at once.
Right.
And it can be as silly as it is because it can be as dark as it is, and vice versa. And I think it was that in the first season. It was even better in the second season, and the third season is like just meteoric rise again. Every single episode of this season, and there's 12 every year, is special, it is different, it is unique. It's the only show I watch on Netflix, at least, that fully solves that streaming problem where it has an arc throughout and you can binge it and be rewarded, but each episode is its own thing. It's its own little work of art.
Right.
It's its own, chapter in a novel that is its own thing. And I feel like a lot of Netflix shows, and just shows in general these days with the tendency towards serialization, don't master that, and it's so important to me. BoJack Horseman gets it. It's, to me, of all the Netflix originals I've seen, it's easily the best, and just keeps getting better. It's got a cast of these incredible live-action comedians like Will Arnett and Paul F. Tompkins, and Kristen Schaal shows up sometimes, and I'm forgetting the name of the woman who plays Princess Caroline the cat, and Alison Brie is on there, and just a lot of different people, and who are all great in live action. And I think to a name, I think they're doing their best work on this show. It's incredible. Just the vocal work being done in this is just so far above and beyond a lot of just the live action comedy work, which is great these days. We're in a really good comedy renaissance on TV. But the show can make me laugh just uproariously hard. There's this episode with this restaurant critic who at the end gives the restaurant 453 stars out of a possible 1 billion.
Okay.
And it made me laugh so hard just about how they were commenting on the culture of stupid online ratings.
Yeah.
And stuff like
That's
that.
not a very good rating, by the way. That's maybe the worst rating anything has ever been given. That is fucking dismal.
Yes.
That is effectively a rating of 0.
Yes. So anyway, it's just, but that episode is also basically a two-hander between BoJack and Princess Caroline, where it's all about sort of their respective histories and pasts and wants and desires, and it will just tear your fucking heart out. There's the show goes to some dark places in its last 2 episodes that just had my jaw dropped to a point where I think the only misstep, if I can even call this that, is that the finale has some uproariously funny stuff in it, and I couldn't laugh because I was so horrified and brought down by where they had gone in the previous episode.
Right.
But it was completely organic the whole way through, and that uproariously funny part in the finale is a payoff to a season-long joke. I've never seen anything like it, where they keep seeding in this thing where basically a character gets a house full of spaghetti strainers in the premiere for dubious reasons, and they are waiting for the spaghetti strainer thing to pay off the entire time, and when it does, it's absolutely amazing. So this season is just phenomenal. This show is phenomenal. If you haven't seen it, it's very easy to binge because, each episode is about half an hour.
Okay.
25 minutes, I guess. And it just... I watched, I think, like 6 in one night of this season. I finished it in basically 2 sittings, the whole season. And I didn't mean to. I just flew through it.
Right.
But it's so fucking good. And again, I love that Netflix is a network, I guess we can call it, that can have releasing in the same month the Weird Talking Horse show and the Weird 80s Throwback show, and they can both kind of be equally acclaimed in different circles.
Yeah, and neither of them are shows that, like, any other network would ever make.
No, not.
Yeah.
Like, I think, the clearest precedent for some of BoJack Horseman is some Fox animation, but even then, like, Fox wouldn't go anywhere near this thing, I think.
Right.
So it's just incredible to me. But, yeah, so, good stuff.
Cool, yeah.
I have 2 more things to talk about.
Okay.
One really good, one really bad. I'm going to go with the good one first.
One really ugly.
This weekend, a new Harry Potter book sort of came out.
Oh, right. I mean, the Harry Potter script came
Yes.
out, right? Isn't that what it is?
Yes. So there's a play that opened in London's West End this weekend, after being in previews for about a month, called Harry Potter and the Cursed Child. And it is not written by J.K. Rowling technically. She's very heavily involved. She helped write the story. She was there for the whole thing. But the actual text of the play is written by a actually very renowned British playwright named Jack Thorne. I was looking at the end of the book, they have the biographies for everyone involved in the play. Heavy hitters. I don't know them because I don't go see British plays, obviously.
Right, yeah.
But if you do, these are names you would know. These people do stuff there. And it's, and the play itself is sold out, I think, to December 2017 already.
Of course
Stuff like that. And, so that's big, and it had the biggest pre-order numbers since Deathly Hallows. But I was very interested in this because, obviously, I love Harry Potter a lot. And I've talked about that before, and I put some stuff up on the site for everyone for that, because I realized my big Harry Potter article I wrote back in 2010 was not on my website, because I think it's one of the last things I wrote for Your Hub, and it never got ported over. So I finally ported that over. And it was very surreal to be sitting down to read a new Harry Potter story, even if it's in a script, it's like a play, not a book, 9 years later. And there's a weird convergence.
9 glorious years of no Harry Potter books.
But there's a weird convergence for me, because The Bourne Ultimatum came out in summer 2007.
Yeah.
Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows, the book, was summer 2007. And I actually finished reading the book of the Bourne Identity the night Deathly Hallows came out. So all of this is kind of tied in my memory together.
Right.
So the same day I went to see Jason Bourne, I read Cursed Child. So the book came out at... I had it on Kindle, so it just delivered to me 10 p.m. on Saturday night.
Okay, yeah.
And it, technically came out on Sunday, and I just sat and I read the whole thing in one sitting. It's 350 pages, I think, but
this play dialogue.
Yeah, it's a play. You can read it really fast. It's 4 acts, and I read each act in about 45 minutes or so. I think the whole play, it's actually a 2-part play, whatever the hell that means. But I think when it's performed, it's over 2 nights, and it's about 5 hours total. But again, I read it in about 2.5, so you can get through it pretty fast. It's really good. It's so much better than I think I had. Not necessarily expectation, but I think that it had any right to be.
Right.
One of doing and I can't separate it from Jason Bourne, but both of those are stories to me that end perfectly. and don't necessarily need a sequel or anything.
Right.
And Jason Bourne, to me, kind of proved some of my worst fears about if you're going to follow up on it and you don't know what you're doing, it can go in the wrong direction.
Yeah.
And this was very clearly, J.K. Rowling has been thinking about this and how she would continue it, and it's really interesting and thoughtful, where one of the things I think we're going to talk about with Jason Bourne, with the Bourne character in particular, is he's kind of stuck in a rut where he's just doing what he's always done.
Yeah.
And it's amazing to me how much the Cursed Child play is so detached from like any kind of Potter loyalism or anything like that. It is from page one to the end. It does not care about just messing with continuity here and there, about messing with maybe your perceptions of certain characters, about playing with the timeline in certain ways. It's very bold and does its own thing and goes in directions you would not expect. And I really love that about it. I know you won't mind. For my listeners, I'm going to spoil it a little bit here.
Yeah, no, I already read the plot synopsis
Okay.
when this thing came out, because like I want to like get this. I need to like plunge myself with more Harry Potter, because when you say Harry Potter and the Cursed Child, that just makes me think about my childhood. I'm the Cursed Child, growing up with all this fucking Harry Potter shit all over the place, and I never gave a shit about it. And everyone else around me always did.
Okay.
Fuck those people. Fuck you.
Can I just like what I like?
No.
Okay.
Yes, except for Harry Potter.
All right. Anyway, can I talk about it a little bit?
Sure. Go
Okay.
ahead. It's got a dumb
So,
plot.
just there's going to be spoilers from this point out. I think I can totally understand. It sounds dumb on paper. It's very well written and it's very well done. And I think, the plot has a lot of time travel.
Sorry, I just have to say this. It sounds dumb on paper is like the tagline for Harry Potter for me.
Okay, that's fine.
I think that's because it's a book series. I thought that was a good burn. Just fuck you.
Okay. Can I again? Anyway,
Yeah.
But it's that it's a time travel plot. If you haven't seen basically the plot, and again, something I commend them for. It really Harry is in it. Some of the adult, Ron and Hermione are in it. The main characters are Harry's son Albus and Draco Malfoy's son Scorpius. And the Scorpius character is the play's masterstroke because I think Scorpius probably has the most lines. I think he's really. I don't know if I would say I think he and Albus are pretty much co-protagonists, but Scorpius, I think, gets the weight of the story, and it rectifies something that is one of my only real complaints with the plot arc of the story, is that J.K. Rowling, I think, had a very interesting character in Draco Malfoy and didn't do anything with him by the end.
Right.
And she does in this book, with that character, and especially with his son, because the whole plot, the crux of the plot is Albus is sorted into Slytherin very unexpectedly, and he and Scorpius become best friends. Scorpius is not like his dad, Albus is not like his dad, and the relationship between them informs everything, and that to me is so interesting because that is why you do an eighth story, because you can do something with characters you just did not get to do last time and shine a new light on this world and kind of see where are we 25 years after the biggest thing that ever happened in this universe, and what would the children of those characters be like. And I think it's very thoughtful in that way. Thematically, it deals with sort of the fallout of the series itself and the war with Voldemort and all that very interestingly, and has a lot of good stuff just with those, again, two main kid characters that I really, really like. And yes, it's a time travel plot, so they wind up trying to... It kind of all hinges on stuff from the fourth book, so which makes sense, because that's when the Voldemort character returns.
What was funny about that was when I was reading the plot synopsis, it was like... Because I think I was reading, it was like the Polygon had an article that basically kind of laid a lot of this stuff out. And when they got to this like thing of like, what is it, Cedric Diggory's the character who dies in Goblet of Fire, I did not remember that at fucking all. And I read like half that book and watched that whole movie. I didn't remember that character ever existed.
No, and I actually think this play is very aware that Cedric is a milquetoast character no one cared about.
Right.
But that's the point, is that he's kind of I can totally understand in this play's perception why that's the death that Harry is guiltily fixated on, because it's not someone who is directly tied to him, it's not someone he loved deeply, but it's someone he feels responsible for the death of, even though it's really not his fault.
Right.
So that's interesting, and I think the way they tie that around is very smart, and because, again, when that happens in the timeline of the series, you get to play with a lot of fun scenes. And it's just cool to me how you go back to some of those scenes, and Jack Thorne and J.K. Rowling, they don't give a fuck if that scene plays out the way it did in the book. They're going to make it work for the play and for this story. And I've seen some people hate this book for that reason.
Right.
Because it's not Potter Orthodoxy 101. And I couldn't applaud them more. I want you, if you're going to do more, do something different. And just, you have to tell a good story, whatever that entails. And they tell a good story here. So I'm not going to spoil where the plot goes and everything, but I just think, I think the basic setup alone is kind of spoilery enough if you didn't want to be spoiled on any of it. They haven't given any of these details away. But I like the way they play with the time travel. The stakes feel interesting and high, not in the way like a Harry Potter book or movie is, but for, again, a play, it's interesting. And really, if you read it, The play is as much an essay and a commentary on the Harry Potter story as it is a continuation of it. It is a sort of meditation in parts on what that story was and some of the themes there. And I think in that way I really like that. Just when you see some scenes with the adult Harry character and trying to get over some of the guilt and pain he would obviously feel if he went through the shit he went through and then became an adult after that. That's interesting. Things they've done with some of the characters. And again, in terms of just, throwing away things that are accepted continuity, I also like that just there's a lot of stuff people have taken as like it's official canon because J.K. Rowling in an interview said, I think this is what Hermione does.
Right.
And the play doesn't care. It's like, we found a better thing to do with Hermione or Ron or something. And again, I like that because this is actually thought through in the context of a story.
What is Ron up to these days? What is he doing?
I think they treat it pretty well. He basically, because the Fred and George, Fred dies in book 7, and they ran a joke shop together, and Ron basically takes Fred's place. And he's still doing that years later. And Hermione becomes the minister for magic. And so, like, Ron is raising the kids and being the jokey dad.
Okay, yeah.
That's so perfect.
That is the right way to do that. That is a good path for those characters after that story.
And because of the time travel stuff, you get some alternate realities, and the stuff they do where in every other reality Ron and Hermione aren't together is fucking hilarious. Because it's very aware of how those characters were written in the books. I think another thing I've seen people disappoint in is I think, this was clearly advertised as like the new Harry Potter book. It's not. It's a play. And people going in to read a book are going to be thrown off. I've read enough plays that doesn't throw me off.
Yeah.
You have to adjust to it. A lot of it is for the stage and will be lost on you unless you kind of use your imagination to feel like, what would they do? And you have to think about, well, this scene is this way because it's for a stage play. And I think it's a very well-written stage play. I would love to see this on the stage. There's clearly some very cool and bold stuff they do with the idea of just how you use a proscenium to tell a Harry Potter story. Yeah. So all of that's very neat. But it is a play, and it also it is not in J.K. Rowling's voice. It is written in someone else's voice, interpreting her voice. And that's okay with me, too, because that also is something new and fun. I don't need her to ever write Harry Potter again. If she does, I'll read it, obviously. But
Finally, we agree on something involving Harry Potter.
Okay, well, anyway.
Sorry, I just have to take the digs when I see them.
And again, to be fair to J.K. Rowling, she has not rested on those laurels in the last 9 years. She's written lots of other stuff, and she's getting back to Harry Potter this year in certain ways, but it's not like she hasn't done anything since then.
Yeah.
Which is cool, I think. But, so I would say, like, if anything, I think some of the highest praise I could give for this is it's kind of like just the best Harry Potter fanfic you'll ever read.
Right.
In that it's someone interpreting the story through their voice, and I like that about it, and I got a lot out of it. It's, I would totally recommend just read it in one sitting, get through it. It's a ton of fun. It's weird. I keep thinking I would love to see the movie of this with the movie actors, and then I remember Alan Rickman is dead.
Oh,
and
God.
There is a Snape scene in this. You have to have Alan Rickman for it. I don't. You would, if you did the movie, you can't do it because you can't do the Alan Rickman scene, or you have to cut that scene from the play, and it's a really good scene. So there's just things like that would make me very
also,
sad.
like, from what I saw of the plot, it seems like there would be, like, I think, like, if they made it sounds like, having not read the script, if they made a movie adaptation of the play, you'd get the same problem of, like, people expecting the Harry Potter novel and getting the play script and not, like, really knowing what to make of it. Is that it's like, people have certain expectations for what a Harry Potter movie is like and what the stakes are and what the pace is and everything like that. And plays are not movies. As much as, like, scripts and screenplays seem like they are the same thing, they're not.
No, although I will say I think this would be significantly easier to adapt to the screen than certain Harry Potter books because it's not a year of school. It's a more condensed thing. There's actually a beautiful scene early on where I expected when they do the scene where Albus gets sorted into Slytherin, they would make a big deal of that, and they don't. Instead, they do, like... And I don't know exactly how it's done on stage, but some of the stage directions are very interesting to me, where it's like, spinning sets and things to illustrate this, but they do 3 years in one scene. Okay. Of those characters growing up and becoming friends. And basically, I think it's in like their 4th year at Hogwarts is when the plot actually kicks in. But they get to there in one scene. And that is one that I think I like the idea of trying to do that in a play. That would be beautiful on film. I think you could totally do something cool with that. So... I would love to see the play. I'm obviously never going to see it with this cast in England.
Right.
But I don't know.
I mean, there's going to be like a filmed version of the play that you can get if you want.
Yeah, I'm sure. So, But yeah, it's cool. And, still, and I saw someone like trying to explain how the sales numbers were disappointing. It sold 2.5 million copies in one day.
It's a script for a fucking play. What are you expecting to sell?
I don't think Shakespeare has sold that much.
Exactly. Like, it's... people don't buy scripts to play. Like, that's not a, like, casual thing that most people go out and buy that you, like, find in, like, the bestseller corner at Barnes & Noble. Like, the fact that you sell any of them is amazing. The fact that, like, because I had no idea thing was coming out until, like, on Twitter, some of the people I follow were like, I'm at the midnight launch for Harry Potter and the Cursed Child. And I was like, am I having a nightmare right now? What is going on? Like,
by the way,
what the fuck?
This is my favorite thing about how the world has changed in the last 9 years.
Yeah.
My midnight launch party was having my Kindle, and it would auto-load it when it was ready, and I could just sit in my comfy chair while everyone else was waiting for the book to come out, and I was, like, done with it before anyone got the book in stores.
Yeah, that's
a midnight launch party.
Yeah.
I love my
those
Kindle.
lines.
I wonder if I would bet that 2.5 million number doesn't include Kindle sales.
Probably,
and people,
yeah,
and
like,
I think,
like it never does include digital sales.
and people are forgetting that last time a Harry Potter book came out, there was no digital reading.
Yeah,
that's kind of scary to think about. But yeah, so.
Yeah.
But no, very good. There's some very touching scenes. If you like the Harry Potter universe, I think you'll really enjoy this. And I think even if you're someone who's a little Harry Potter agnostic and isn't super into it, you might find this interesting because it's not the J.K. Rowling novels.
Right.
And I like that about it, even though I love the J.K. Rowling novels. So that was cool.
Yeah. I would actually be kind of interested in seeing the play of this.
Yeah.
Like some of the, just like seeing the synopsis of the plot, some of the things maybe kind of roll my eyes a bit. But as someone who has, like, even if I don't really like Harry Potter, I've seen all the movies. I read, like, the first 3.5 books. Like, I have interest in it as a cultural artifact, and the idea of this play is very interesting. Although I don't think I would, like, commit to, like, reading the script. It seems like a bit dull for, like, someone who's not invested in it, you know?
No, I totally get it. But, and again, I commend them for that you wait 9 years, and your big revival for it is not... I mean, I know they're doing the Fantastic Beasts movie, but I kind of consider that a different thing.
That's a spin-off thing.
Yeah. Your big revival is not, she's just going to sell out and write an 8th book, or do an 8th movie, or, Daniel Radcliffe has to come back and shave his beard or something.
Yeah, he has to, like, become sane again.
Yes.
Go do, like, a big movie.
No, it's you do this West End play with, like, really revered play people in England and a cast of what seems like really great theater, stage people. They made Hermione black. That's awesome.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, Hermione in the play, and they're like, she's a great actress. Who gives a fuck about her skin color?
Right, yeah.
I was like, yeah, who gives a fuck? You guys are good at this.
Yeah.
Anyway, so I like that. Here's something I didn't like.
Okay.
I saw Batman the Killing Joke.
Oh, fuck, right. That came out between here and the last podcast. I did not watch it, but I know basically everything about that movie because I have read a lot.
Oh, God.
Yeah.
What did they do?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna start with the good things.
Okay.
When it's just doing scenes from the book,
right,
it's pretty okay, and sometimes it's pretty effective. Mark Hamill is great. He's always great.
Course, yeah.
He's never not great. Kevin Conroy is great. Never not great. I like that. Their voice for Gordon in this is horrible. It's Ray Wise. I love Ray Wise. I don't know what he was trying in this, but he's like, Ray Wise has kind of a cool, deep voice.
Yeah.
He was trying to like make Gordon sound like a 20-year-old kid with acne. It was weird. Huh. Like, it's a really bad Gordon. But other than that, like and Tara Strong, as much as they fuck over Batgirl in this movie, literally, she's good. I mean, she's Tara Strong.
She's the voice of Batgirl from the animated series.
Yes,
well, so.
she really cannot do wrong in this part.
She knows how to play Batgirl.
Yeah. And I think the last couple scenes when it's just Batman and Joker in a room, very good. If you ignore the dirt cheap animation.
Yeah.
So there's that. The first 30 minutes are a Batgirl prologue. And it's not even... And that's the weird thing. Like, what it really should be is a 45-minute Killing Joke movie on the DVD, and then a bonus feature that is the Batgirl episode.
Yeah.
But it's all one movie. And so I'm going to get into the specific problems with this in a second. The larger scale problem, just from like if you detach ethics from this, which we're going to have to get into, but if you just from storytelling logic... Having the first 30 minutes of a 70-minute movie not include the Joker in the Killing Joke movie is fucking bizarre.
Yeah.
And it's such a bad choice. It kills any momentum the movie has because you watch 30 minutes of the worst animated series episode ever, which is pretty much what it is. And then you get into the Killing Joke, which is supposed to be the definitive Joker story, but by weight of storytelling, it's become a really bad Batgirl story. And what is that bad Batgirl story climax with? Her getting shot and sexually assaulted.
Right, yeah.
They made it so much worse. And so
Yeah.
this is where you have to bring the actual content of the story in, because those 30 minutes, it's so much worse than any description could tell you. Like if you're just hearing it secondhand. Because really what it is it's Batgirl really wants to fuck Batman.
Yeah.
So she becomes Batgirl.
Uh-huh.
All she can do is complain to her gay best friend she works with in a library about how Batman won't notice her. She's chasing a guy named Paris Franz, who is the worst Batman villain ever. I'm just going to say that. Worst Batman villain ever, who is just constantly ogling her and basically, sexually harassing her. Yeah. So there's that. And then she keeps failing because she is a weak woman, which is exactly what they present it as. I am not sugarcoating that. The theme of those 30 minutes is that women can't be superheroes because their emotions and sexuality get in the way.
Yeah.
That is the story. I don't care what Brian Azzarello and the people who made this say. That is 100% the theme of this. So that keeps getting in the way. Finally, she and Batman fuck, which is really weird, on a rooftop. And I should say, they portray Batman as an old Batman in this. Like, he is...
I mean, it's Kevin Conroy voicing Batman. It doesn't sound like, this is like Batman early on when he's in his 20s.
No, and up until that point, when Batman and Batgirl are in a scene, it's completely the paternal thing. Yeah. So when they finally fuck...
It is the relationship that Batman and Batgirl have.
Yes.
And have basically always had.
So it feels every bit as incestuous as it sounds when they finally do it.
Yeah.
And the only person whose skin you see in the scene is hers.
Of course.
So there's that. And then she fails to find Paris Franz again, and then she realizes, I'm a woman, I can't fight crime, I'm hanging this up. And then we get into the Killing Joke where after that she gets shot. And after that, they have a tag in the credits where she becomes Oracle.
Right.
Where really how they hammer home her story is, thank God she got shot and paralyzed because now she can do what she was meant to do. And I'm not kidding. That is the tone you get out of it. And in terms of, there's so many problems. The absolute over-sexualization of Barbara Gordon in this, where you have the sex scene, but also in all her... I think the scene leading up to her getting shot by the Joker is her jogging, where the camera's just like on her ass for 10 seconds, and then her like sweaty getting into her home and all that, so that she can then get shot and sexually assaulted by the Joker in something that is every bit as graphic as it was in the novel. They did not fix it one bit. And because of the surrounding narrative context, they made it so vastly worse.
Yeah.
This is one of the worst things to ever happen to the Batman ethos.
Yeah.
Or Batman mythos, I should say.
Right. Yeah, no, it's a fucking thing, man. Like, and I think it's important to note that Bruce Timm, who is the producer on this movie, seems like from all the interviews and everything, it seems like he was pretty hands-on with this one, and who's the sort of was the creative voice behind Batman the Animated Series, Superman, Justice League Unlimited, those cartoons. He has always had a weird thing about shipping Batman and Batgirl together. There is, technically in continuity with Batman Beyond, like Batman and Batgirl had a relationship in between Batman the Animated Series and Batman Beyond that takes place like 50 years in the future or however long it is. Like it is referenced in an episode. It is apparently, because I have not read the comic, is way more explicit in a like comic book version of like a continuation of Batman Beyond where they go into, because it all has to do with like the big falling out that Dick Grayson and Bruce had was that Dick Grayson, Robin / Nightwing, traditionally in the comic books and in the cartoon has a relationship with Barbara Gordon, but then in the cartoon apparently at some point in between Batman and Batman Beyond, Batman and Barbara had a relationship, and then Dick Grayson found out about it and they had a big fight, and it's like, why, Bruce Timm? Like, why? What is your weird fixation on this specific pairing that makes no human sense at all?
She's his daughter. She's his symbolic daughter. The only way I can make this clearer is, I'll put it this way. Would you be okay if Batman fucked Robin? I know we all make the jokes about ambiguously gay duo.
Yes, I would be. Yeah, that's why I said there.
Okay, yes. But it would be weird if he fucked Robin because Robin is his, as we hear in the 66 series, youthful ward. It's his adopted son. She is not literally his adopted daughter. It's just as bad. She is his symbolic daughter.
Yeah, she is his symbolic daughter. She is the literal daughter of his best friend, who is also like basically his fucking coworker.
Yes.
So that's like another weird situation. He is like the best age difference you can do is like 10 years, and that's like if you're like skewing Batman way young. But he, even then, like most Batman, he's 15 to 20 years older than her. Like, she is Robin's girlfriend. Like every single social relationship involving Batman and Batgirl basically preclude them having a romantic relationship. Every single one is designed in such a way that them being together is super fucking weird.
And if you're not actually going to do anything with it, like if Bruce Timm wanted to do an alt-universe thing where, like, let's explore the actual ramifications of this incestuous thing, that might be interesting in the way, Batman comics always sometimes just go into weird alternate dimensions.
Yeah, like a what-if kind of thing.
Yeah, whatever. Do that. Go jack off on that.
Yeah.
But, like, for this and just to not deal with it and to just treat it as something that... I mean, this was their attempt to try to make this story better for Barbara Gordon.
Yeah.
And the thing is, like, within the context of the movie, I'm seeing some people say, just ignore the first 30 minutes and it's fine. I can't do that. It's a movie. You're telling me to ignore half the movie.
Yeah.
That's not how movies work. I'm sorry. And also, it's just, you can't ignore that. Because once you get into the meat of it, I can see so many ways they could have done this right.
Right.
Here's the way you do it. You start with the same first scene, which is Batman goes to interrogate the Joker. The Joker's not there. Joker's on the loose. And then if you want to extend it, do it there while they're looking for the Joker. And you can have Barbara come in and she helps him out, and then we get a sense of what their relationship is like. Barbara gets to be a character.
Right.
Then when you do the assault scene, I would get rid of the sexual assault aspect of it. And I think you're not going to ever make it perfect, but you can kind of help it a little bit.
Sure.
And then I would move on and kind of, keep these characters in the picture. And if you can't get it to 75 minutes, that's okay. It's a direct-to-video movie anyway. That's how you do it. You do not do it by doing the... It's a bad episode of the animated series up front and then the movie.
Yeah.
And it's awful.
But it's also, like, for me, because I have been thinking a lot about this. I also, just broke out my Killing Joke graphic novel and reread it, just, because it's such an interesting thing, because I feel like it's just, this movie coming out has, sparked up a huge amount of discourse around the graphic novel as well as around this movie. And it's such an interesting problem to think about the adaptation of The Killing Joke, which is a great graphic novel that is very much a part of its era, and the way it uses Barbara Gordon is very much a part of its era, and it's something where if you are trying to adapt it to a movie, you are faced with that hard question of, do we try to update this thing that, what they do to Barbara Gordon in The Killing Joke is super fucked up, and not in just a way of the shock value, in a way of the way they use the character is sexist, it's wrong, and in the history of comic books, it's devastating for that character, because it kicked Barbara Gordon basically out of DC Comics for 10 plus years before they finally came around to sort of turning her into Oracle and turning her into a much more interesting character and using her again. It's all that shit is fucked up and bad, and was bad in a social context when it happened. And it's just, if you did it now in that story, I think for a lot of people it would feel incredibly dated and awkward to just have that, if you didn't have the sort of historical context around that decision and why that decision was made and when it was made and the state of the comic book industry when that choice was made. It's that's a hard question to tackle. And so the idea of let's make Batgirl more involved, and that's one way to sort of fix that issue. I think that is one way to go about it, but you're right. They went about it the wrong fucking way through all top to down. It seems the way they use Batgirl is just sexist, awkward, and gross, and her relationship with Batman is sexist and awkward and gross, and just her characterization is sexist, awkward, and gross. But then also just like you said, the positioning of it, I think even your idea for me doesn't quite work. Of whether it's a prologue, that's just at the beginning, or it's an extended sequence that happens after the very beginning of The Killing Joke, if there's some time there. None of that fixes the problem of how Batgirl is used in that story.
No, it needs.
Because the problem with that is that it is a story that is about Batman and Joker's relationship that then also incidentally completely destroys Barbara Gordon's life. And that's what's wrong. If you can have a story where Batgirl, besides Barbara Gordon, is shot and paralyzed, but that story has to be about her. It's really fucked up for that just to be some side thing. And that's part of the historical and cultural context of that book, I think, is that book is very aware in some ways of the weird sort of toxic masculine environment in which it's made of the comic books in the 80s, and it's trying to, with its themes of Batman and Joker and how they're so alike and how there's very little distinguishing them, it's trying to argue against some of those and just to demonstrate how they are both in a lot of ways very negative figures of masculinity. But at the same time, that book also practices those same sort of philosophies and how it treats Batgirl, and that's one of the things that makes it interesting to me as a cultural artifact.
It's a common problem with Alan Moore's things in the 80s, where a lot of it is him thumbing his nose at people like Frank Miller.
Right.
And 95% he's doing it right, and there's 5% where he falls into the same traps. And I think that's true in Watchmen. I think it's true in V for Vendetta. It's true in his classic books.
Yeah, but I think it's something where in some ways, like, it's sort of unavoidable, and it's something where, like, you know, I've talked about this on this podcast numerous times, but, like, a lot of my focus in my studies in college was involved with Victorian literature, and one of the reasons why I like that is the same reason why I like stuff like Watchmen and Killing Joke, is that a lot of great Victorian literature stuff, like, I mean, like, Pride and Prejudice, not quite Victorian, but it's close enough. Pride and Prejudice is a very good example of a novel that is both simultaneously trying to argue against, like, these sort of negative cultural norms of femininity, of, like, falling in love, or not falling in love, but marrying, and marrying for money, and the cultural expectation around that for women, and trying to argue against that. But then at the same time, at the end of that novel, what does the protagonist do? She marries a rich guy. And she does it supposedly for love, but I think it's like that the novel is not totally able to escape the cultural norms in which it exists, because nothing is. And the distance we have from it allows us to recognize the ways in which it fails, but also the ways in it's trying to escape the cultural pitfalls that exist in the time it was made. And I think, like, the most great art has that quality to it, so I think The Killing Joke has that quality to it as well. But, like, the thing is, to go back to what I was trying to say, like, one of the things with how you fix The Killing Joke is not to make Batgirl more important at the beginning of the story, it's to make her more important at the end of the story. The problem isn't that Batgirl doesn't feature a lot in the story, the problem is that she doesn't feature in the important part of the story, which is generally the climax. She has, after she is shot, you get, like, one scene of her in the hospital, and she basically doesn't show up again. She has nothing to do with catching the Joker. She has nothing to do with the sort of thematic argument being made at the end of the story. That's where you need more. Batgirl is involved with that side of the story, not the setup. Adding more to her in the setup, I don't think it, like, makes the problem better by making her more of a character. I think it makes the problem worse by highlighting even more how little the story actually has to do with her.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And and again, part of why it's disappointing is when it's good, it's pretty good.
Yeah.
Like, the way they handle the flashback scenes, which are probably my least favorite part of the Killing Joke book, they're my favorite part of this movie, because I love sort of the atmosphere and the animation, the color scheme, and the way Mark Hamill does the voice of the Joker as a person is fascinating. It's really good. And so that's cool. Again, some of the final scenes with Batman and the Joker are good. But no matter how good the movie gets, and I do think there are moments where, like, the music is great, and some of the creative choices being made by the animators are good, you can never forget what they've done up to that point, right, and it just sours the whole thing. It's impossible to enjoy purely, I think. So that's...
Yeah.
And I talked about the animation being cheap. It's a little unfair. This is a direct-to-video movie. And, you know, I saw it in a theater, and some of it looked fine on the big screen. I do think some of the animation is really bad. I mean,
I haven't, like, watched the whole movie, but I've seen numerous clips and stuff like that. And I've watched most of the DC animated output. I haven't watched the recent stuff, but, like, the animation, like the Red Hood one, is way better than this.
The animation on the Joker himself is terrible. I don't even know where to be. It's not even vaguely related to Brian Bolland's design of him, so I don't know where the fuck they got it, but, like, his chin is, like, 3 times as long as his head. I don't know what his model is, but he feels like he's constantly off model from what he was in the scene before.
Right.
And it's like Mark Hamill's performance has trouble getting through that. Batman is very kind of sparsely animated. I don't think that works. It does not recall the look of The Killing Joke almost at all as a book, and that is a problem. I'm sorry. Like, I know they're never going to make it look just like the book. That's
because the book is so, like, it has such a detailed, realistic art style to it that it's, like, hard to.
You can't do that.
You can't animate it, obviously.
But you could feel like you have some influence. It just looks weird and bad a lot of the time. And it, you know, again, it feels like where do they put the money? It's in Barbara Gordon's ass. That's where they put the money in their animation. And, you know, okay, if you didn't have the money to really do a feature-length version of this, then why didn't you do the 40-minute version of it and make it look good?
Right.
And it's just, there's a lot of issues. It's a real disappointment, especially because this is, a great graphic novel, and this would be the moment to think about it and try to figure out how to maybe update it.
Right.
Does Barbara Gordon need to get paralyzed in the story? That's a question you could actually sit down and ask. And that's not the question. As an adaptation, this is panel for panel, word for word. They have made 0 changes. Once you get into it, it's just the book.
Right.
So I don't even know if you can call that an adaptation. You know?
Uh-huh.
It's a translation. That's all it is.
Yeah,
sometimes it's decent and sometimes it's offensively awful. So
yeah, it just feels like when they announced this, it always seemed like such an obvious thing of, like, oh, they have this, like, DC animated movie thing that they do. Mark Hamill has said he wanted to do The Killing Joke. It seems like that's a fucking easy one. You know, they're just going to knock that one out of the park. You don't have to do that much. Like, I mean, because I think like it would be nice to try to update it, but honestly, like I think the best path would be like just do a fairly faithful adaptation, like change the stuff you need to change to make it work as a movie and like to animate it. But like, I think personally that's probably the direction I would go with it, and just like because like trying to change that decision with the book just seems like there's so much that goes into that, and like how much do you want to like sort of like change what that book was and like its original cultural context, and like trying to actually fix that problem I think involves changing so much around that decision that like you're never going to please everybody with that choice. But it just seems like no matter what approach you want to take it, whether you want to update it or whether you want to just do something a lot more faithful, it feels like they just did the wrong choice in every single direction that they could have. It just seems insane to me that it turned out this way.
Mm-hmm. And I'm not saying this to compare these two movies qualitatively, because I think one of them is much better than the other. But I do think it's conspicuous. The two worst DCAU movies to me by far are this and The Dark Knight Returns.
Right, yeah.
I just, easily. And
yeah, I agree with that, having seen a lot more than you have.
I just, yeah. And so it's like, I guess my conclusion is just don't do the long Halloween if you ever get the urge.
I think like, I saw some people saying like, well, maybe they should just do the long Halloween. It's like, how do you even... The long Halloween's not even like one story. It's just a collection of stories. Like, it's not... How the fuck would you even adapt Long Halloween? And actually, like the other day, thinking about other DC animated movies that I didn't like so much, I didn't like their Batman Year one either.
Okay. So
maybe there is just something about classic Batman stories from the 80s that is just like... Don't go near those.
And they exist out of time. I mean, you're so right about The Killing Joke. It holds up, I think, much better than any of the Frank Miller stories.
Oh God, yeah.
But it is still, you have to understand the context.
Yeah,
and
I mean, it's a lot better when you understand the context in which it was made. I think it's something that makes that story very like it reads to me really well within the context of when it was made.
It was Alan Moore doing kind of an angry screed against Batman. I mean, that's what it is. You can't do it as a straight Batman story, which is also part I think tonally the movie misses. Is it's an anti-Batman story. It's not a Batman story. It's not.
It is a story that is basically saying Batman is kind of the Joker. He just doesn't quite kill people. Like, I feel like that is like the characterization of Batman in that story. Is like he's this big stoic guy that goes around and beats people up and he's trying to do the right thing, but he's this like he's a violent psychopath. But in a much more interesting way than the Frank Miller violent psychopath, where this violent psychopath is a bad thing. The Frank Miller wants you to think the violent psychopath is a good thing.
Still not the worst Batman movie to come out this year.
I guess, it's definitely not the worst. It's not the worst Batman movie, or it's not the worst movie that has Batman in the title. I'm not sure either of these I would qualify as actual Batman movies at this point.
Yeah. Speaking of which...
Because a Batman who kills people and a Batman who has sex with Barbara Gordon, neither of those are Batman. Those are both so insanely off character, I cannot possibly recognize them as actual representations of the character Batman. They're just crazy people pretending to be Batman.
Speaking of which, we're going to hit some news right now.
Okay.
And I'm moving these around because why don't we talk about Suicide Squad right now?
Okay, yeah.
Are you going to try to see the movie?
I don't know.
Okay, I'm
Batman
not...
v Superman really kicked my ass, man.
I know. Here's what I'm going to say. I'm going to try to see the movie.
Okay.
And if you don't want to, you don't have to.
Okay,
I free you from that as podcast co-host.
Oh, that's a weight off my shoulders.
If you want to, we can talk about it.
Okay? Yeah, we'll see. We'll
see. I will talk about it next week. I'll take one for the team. I'm just too curious not to. But the reviews are out. Even the good ones rub me the wrong way personally.
Yeah, even the good ones are tepid at best.
And I don't want to. And I want to say right up front, if you liked this movie as a critic or you're going to like it as a fan, more power to you.
Sure, yeah.
This does not sound like it is anywhere near as offensive to the mythos as something like Batman v Superman.
No. I mean, how could it be?
But even like critics I very much respect who liked it, I read their review, and I don't find it disingenuous. That's not my point. It's just the things they like about it sound like things that would annoy me a little bit.
Yeah.
So that's all I'm saying. But that's it, and I think more than the reviews being bad, it's the larger issue for a news item of this cultural conversation that DC, A, apparently can't make a coherent movie.
No.
B, there's all the reports coming out now that they had competing cuts, and David Ayer apparently did stick with the movie through to the end. This was not a situation like Josh Trank on Fantastic Four or anything like that, but it was a case where he had one version of the movie. Batman v Superman came out, and the studio decided we have to do something different.
Yeah.
So there's that.
So like all those reports of reshoots are
they're
and
true. It again feeds the narrative that we have multiple DC movies now where directors have either left or they've been fired because they just couldn't do what they wanted to do.
Or like interfered with in the process.
Yeah, so there's all of that. And it's a bad look. And I want to say, I completely called it last week. Yeah. Joker's not in the movie! He's in it for like 5 minutes, apparently.
I was wrong.
I was totally right. He's barely in the movie, is what every report says. And that pisses me off, not because I need to see Jared Leto's Joker, but because
I kind of don't really want to see Jared Leto's Joker.
I have nothing against the performance of the Joker. It's the hype around it that pisses me off, where it's like 99% of the hype is him, the other 1% is Harley Quinn.
Yeah.
And Harley Quinn sounds like she is the main character in the movie, but we'll talk about that in a little bit. Right. But like the Joker stuff, it's like that's all anyone talks about is his weird, stupid method stunts, and they had all those pictures of the costuming coming out, and he's a cameo in the movie. And so it's like, that just pisses me off on a marketing level. I don't like it when people do. It's a bait and switch, and I don't like that.
I mean, because they've been feels like he is a significant player in every single. I mean, he's the stinger at the end of the first trailer they released for this movie.
He's second build.
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
And this isn't a Mark Hamill in Star Wars 7 situation where Mark Hamill has to be second build because he's Mark Hamill.
Yeah,
he does not have to be second build if he's a 7-minute cameo, which is everything I've heard. And so again, that does not necessarily impact the movie's quality.
Although it might. It sounds like it does, because it sounds like not only is it a 7-minute cameo, it's a 7-minute non sequitur.
Yes. Because also, what I think both of us assumed, and I think you could make a pretty good movie with this, is the Joker winds up being the villain, and Harley Quinn, as kind of the main character, has her loyalties tested. That writes itself, frankly.
Yeah, and that was the last podcast we had. That was my conclusion, was after 5,000 Suicide Squad trailers, that Joker, through sheer process of elimination, had to be the villain in the movie because there was literally no other character shown in any of the trailers in a villainous light at all. It had to be the Joker, and it's not the fucking Joker. So who's the villain of the fucking movie?
I just assumed the plot was Amanda Waller sends them to do something. They don't know it's the Joker. They find out it's the Joker while on the mission, and then that's when things go crazy because Harley Quinn compromises the team. Again, it writes itself.
Yeah, it's such an obvious plot that literally that is a Suicide Squad story from the comic books. You don't need to go far to get that idea. It's a pretty good idea.
Instead, it's Enchantress.
Yeah, it's
kind of.
It's reading the general plot description from some of the reviews is probably going to be the best part of this whole movie because that plot sounds like an insane mess. It sounds like it makes a lot of sense based on the plot of that movie why you can't figure out who the villain is from the trailer.
Yes, and it sounds also like why every trailer was for a different movie.
Yeah.
That's literally what happened. The Comic-Con trailer last year, where it was all super somber, that's apparently what the original version of the movie was.
Yeah.
And then they did the second trailer that was all fun, and then that got good reception, so Warner Brothers said, make that, here's some money for reshoots.
Yeah, in here we've licensed a couple of pop songs, threw that in there.
And apparently they're all in the movie too, which that just rubs me so far the wrong way. I mean, people have been making this joke on Twitter, and it sounds like it is the movie. It's Hot Topic the movie. And I don't need to see Hot Topic the movie.
No, I feel like I would melt if I watched Hot Topic the movie.
So,
it's just like I'm the Wicked Witch and Hot Topic the movie is water. It's gone. I'm a hole in the floor.
And the weird thing is, relative to expectations, this might be one of the only big successes of the summer, given how it's tracking in terms of dollars. And I'm curious to see. And I am pretty damn sure that tracking has to be off. I cannot imagine a world in which Suicide Squad opens to $150 million. That sounds so silly to me. It could happen, I guess, but I don't know. I think that's weird. But, just getting back to the issues with the news side of it, it is this perception thing where DC had 2 at-bats this year, and before either of them even got to general audiences, they just kind of struck out.
Yeah.
And it was through muddled marketing, and it was through a lot of weird decisions, and frankly, everything I keep hearing about how, what we saw in Batman v Superman and everything I've heard about this movie and what we've seen of the characters and, Harley Quinn and how they kind of treat that character, even though it seems like Margot Robbie is really good, I hate how that character is presented in the trailers and stuff.
Yeah, I mean, in every single trailer, they have the shot of her, putting her shirt on.
Yeah. No, she's dressed like a stripper, and I don't mean that in a derogatory way to her, but to the studio, where she's wearing, basically panties and leggings, so you see most of her body, and it's just complete hypersexualization. Margot Robbie has even spoken in interviews about how it made her uncomfortable, and none of the men are dressed that way.
Yeah.
And people who say, well, the Joker has his shirt off, you can go fuck yourself and read any feminist work.
Yeah.
You'll figure it out.
Yeah, I feel like it's kind of useless to try to deflect that argument at this point because nobody ever listens when you respond with, that's not how sexualization of characters work. It's not equivalent just because, male character, like, look, Batman has his shirt off in this panel, too. It's like, that doesn't mean that they're not over-sexualizing Catwoman. You really don't understand the arguments here.
No, you don't. And they're not sexualizing the Joker when he has his shirt off.
Yeah.
You might be sexualizing the Joker when he has his shirt off.
We're all sexualizing
And I'm not judging you for that, but they want you to sexualize Harley Quinn, and that's the difference.
Yeah.
So there's all of that. But my larger point is, I really wonder if anyone working on DC movies has ever seen DC stuff before.
Yeah.
None of this feels like any of the characters I know in any form. And, I said this on Twitter, I understand someone like Harley Quinn is a hard character to get right.
Yeah, like she's an insanely cartoonish character.
She's very tough. Step one is not booty shorts.
Yeah, I mean, hey, guess what Harley Quinn did not wear in her, like, original incarnation in the animated series? Anything that revealed any skin at all. She was so not sexualized as a character, it's kind of impossible to, like, read something sexual in her.
Yeah, and they've flirted with that off and on over the years, And,
yeah, like, the video games obviously have done their redesigns of Harley Quinn I'm not a huge fan of.
No, and although I think that she's more than that in those movies, in those games, which is good. But yeah, I'm curious. I mean, it's weird for me because I love Harley Quinn as a character. The only reason I'm excited to see the movie is I am interested in what Margot Robbie is doing with it.
Right.
But I feel like whatever she's doing, it's going to be in spite of other things, and I don't like that.
Yeah.
And I just feel like also, like, even if this movie does well, everything we've heard about the on-set stuff with this, who's going to want to come back for this movie other than Jared Leto so he can go crazy again?
Yeah, apparently, like, just someone is giving him cocaine in, like, the back for the whole movie. He just, like, showed up and was like, okay, we're going to shoot your scene today, Jared, and then you can go, like, do some other stuff. Like, I'm just going to stay the whole time and fucking jack off in condoms and send them to people, because that's real funny. That's method acting.
And, I mean, it sounds like everyone says Viola Davis is fantastic, as she always is.
That makes me happy that Amanda Waller is really good.
Great. She was apparently miserable filming this thing because Jared Leto was sexually harassing her by sending her used condoms. So if she's in another one of these, I will be shocked.
Right.
And I would be kind of this. It's the same with some of the other characters in this.
Maybe they can just appease her and have, like, write the scene in the Suicide Squad 2 where, like, Joker shows up and she just snaps Joker's neck and kills him. Because Amanda Waller's a fucking badass.
No, she would. And so those are things I'm interested in. No one is suggesting this is in any way as bad as Batman v Superman, but it sounds like it has so many of the same fundamental problems of a studio that doesn't understand the stuff, doesn't know what they want to do, are being completely reactive, are reworking movies after they're shot and coming out, and not normal. Reshoots are fine. If you are, if
you're trying to remake the movie after you've made it, like, that's not fine.
No,
like, reshoots are for, like, filling in some holes and stuff. It's not for remaking the tone of the whole film.
Like, people briefly panicked when it said Rogue One was doing reshoots. It sounds like that's totally normal reshoots where it's, we looked at our edit and we'd like to change this, this, and this, and that needs punching up. Let's do it. And that's 99% of movies do that.
Yeah.
So that's that's a totally different thing. I don't know. And we got to talk about the culture war here.
Yeah.
Here's what I want to describe things.
Okay.
So there's this weird... People who are on the outside keep saying, oh man, this DC Marvel war is weird. One,
there's no DC Marvel war. There hasn't been for years.
There is no DC Marvel war. There are DC fans who are paranoid and think there's a DC Marvel war.
Yeah.
It's just like, we really don't have an illegal immigration problem right now.
Right, yeah.
We really don't have all that much of a violent crime problem right now, other than with mass gun violence that they're not addressing anyway.
Right.
But Donald Trump is making an issue of that, and it's not real.
Yeah.
It's the same thing with DC people who are... I don't know where these people come from. I don't know what they are, but they are trying to pretend there's this giant culture war between DC and Marvel. It's not a thing.
Yeah, I mean, for God's sakes, like the DC Marvel split as like the sort of like the Sega Nintendo console wars kind of thing. That hasn't been a thing since like the late 80s. Like they had like the comic book bases of both of them normalized towards each other, where they both have such a broad range of characters and they share creative voices all the time, go across both the companies, that it's like you can find DC books that are like Marvel books and Marvel books that are like DC books. They're not that different. There's slightly different flavors to the overall universes, but there's not a big... Like, people who are... people aren't Marvel fans or DC fans if they're reading the comic books. They are comic book fans because they're going to read bits of both, whatever interests them.
If this was the Sega Nintendo split, here's what it would be, though, right now with the movies.
Yeah.
it would be, let's say Nintendo is Marvel with their movies, and it's the normal Super NES library. You got your Metroids, you got Legend of Zelda: Link to the Past, you've got Mario World, all the great games.
Yeah.
They're all there. It's a really good system. You get your money's worth. And it would be like if you had that, and then DC is Sega, and the Genesis comes out broken, and you can't use it, and you have to get a patch, you have to send it in and get it repaired, and then the first game just gives you the middle finger for 3 hours.
Instead of Sonic the Hedgehog 1, you got Sonic 3D Blast was the first Sonic game that came out, and just sinks the system.
Yes. Yeah. That's the split. There's no war, and I'm sorry if upset DC fanboys can't hear me say this. The MCU stuff is a series of good movies with an average level of quality that make money and people want to watch.
Yeah, that people like. The audiences like.
There is baseline cinematic competency.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry if you can't hear that. They're not paying off fucking critics to sink your precious DC movies. It's that DC, the Warner Brothers people, are not comic book people. They don't know how to do a shared universe like this, and they don't know how to run a franchise.
Yeah, and they don't respect their characters. They don't respect the comic books, and it feels like a cash grab. It feels just like, well, Marvel has done this shared universe thing that is getting them a lot of money because it's getting people to come under the Marvel brand and see Marvel movies and not just see the Iron Man movies or just see the Captain America movies. They see all of them, and so DC wants a piece of that pie, but never did the work to get the piece of that pie that Marvel did in the first place. They just want it.
So I mean, and this is the point. They don't respect their characters. Moreover, they don't respect you. If you're the crazy DC fanboy and you really think Batman v Superman was good enough for you, you are kind of pathetic.
Yeah, you're selling yourself short.
Yes, because they didn't give a shit about you.
Yeah, it is one of my favorite things now, ever since Batman v Superman, and now with Suicide Squad, is when one of these movies come out and then it gets a rotten score on Rotten Tomatoes, is to go onto the DC_cinematic subreddit on Reddit, which is just the saddest conglomeration of people. It's just the most incredible corner of the internet that's where you have, because it feels like it is a collection of people that would have a bunch of the super extreme political opinions we've seen in this election, only they have them about fucking comic book movies instead of
things that matter.
Instead of gun violence and immigration and college tuition and social issues that are important. They have it about it's not about whether or not Democrats rigged the election. It's whether Disney is paying off critics to sink Batman v Superman, which is the most pathetic conspiracy theory I think I've ever heard in my whole life. It's not 9/11 was an inside job. It's not America faked the moon landing to posture themselves in the Cold War. It's critics are being paid off to give bad reviews to bad movies. Fucking, are you serious? And there's so many people that have that opinion and are so loud about it. It's horrifying in some ways.
I don't want to say I get it, because I don't.
Yeah.
I get the part of it, which is that I think if you like DC Comics and you want these movies, and you see Marvel and you're like, I want that for my characters.
Right, yeah, I understand that feeling as someone who's a big fan of Superman.
Yes. But you're not saying people rigged the reviews for Man of Steel.
No, I'm saying Man of Steel was a shit Superman movie. I want them to make a good Superman movie.
Yes.
It's something where all these people are so obsessed and hyped up about these DC movies before they know anything about them, just coming out of the announcement of the movie before they even seen the first trailer. They are already assuming it's going to be amazing. That by the time it comes out, they've already brainwashed themselves. They've already told themselves over and over so many times, Suicide Squad's going to be great, or Batman v Superman's going to be great. And if you think that to yourself constantly and are constantly getting into heated internet arguments all the time about that issue, and you're constantly trying to defend the DC's movie stuff because for whatever reason you have assigned your identity to it, of course you're going to like the fucking movie. It's the same reason why you said with Trump, it's the same reason why there are so many people who think that violent crime is at an all high in America when it's the lowest it's been in over 20 years, because the guy, if someone tells you something enough and you don't think about it critically, you are just going to accept it over time. It's documented psychological effect.
Yes.
Don't fucking do that to yourself over movies. That's a fucking crazy person thing to do. Just watch the trailers, and if you think it looks like it's a good movie, go see it. Or if like you're interested culturally and artistically in the superhero movie fad right now, go see the movie and like form your own opinion about it. But don't sit there and have arguments that you've already decided that this movie is going to be great before you know anything about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Totally. And, you know, I'm open that I might enjoy the movie when I go see it.
Yeah,
and
Will Smith is in it. He's cool. Margot Robbie's in it. She's cool.
There's a lot of people I like, and I'm sure I have no doubt that there are good things in this movie. This does not look like a dumpster fire the way Batman v Superman is to me, or a complete dumpster fire, a partial dumpster fire. But you know, so I'm open to all that. But yes, I mean, as you say, it's the culture that is so baffling with this. And I mean, my favorite thing now is the petition to shut down Rotten Tomatoes, which just aggregates critics. It's not.
And that's the thing that, like, if Suicide Squad had come out and gotten, like, rave reviews, no one would give it, like, everyone would be pointing at, like, look how good its Rotten Tomatoes score is. It's like, they don't give a shit about Rotten Tomatoes. They're just angry. And they're just trying to use whatever argument they can to try to justify their own anger.
And I think Rotten Tomatoes and Metacritic should be shut down for very different reasons.
Sure.
I think they're a poison to the internet because of the way people treat this data stuff, but that's a different
I just like to go to them because they point to you to all the other reviews so I don't have to, like, follow a bunch of different websites.
And I like Rotten Tomatoes because it doesn't, it's not the mafia grip on gaming sites and shit.
Right, yeah.
Which Metacritic is a horrible, horrible, horrible organization.
Yeah, it doesn't feel like everyone's, like, who's involved with the production of the movie, their, like, whole livelihood depends on whether or not it's an 87 or an 88 on Rotten Tomatoes.
Yes. But no, I mean, the Rotten Tomatoes thing is funny. I think it's also like people saying, oh, critics had their knives out for this one. I can maybe understand that argument for Batman v Superman because it looked so obviously awful. I don't think critics had their knives out for this.
Yeah, no, like...
I think people were interested in this movie. It's had positive hype. The trailers, I don't think either of us have enjoyed them much. It's good marketing.
I think because if you're just looking at them as like whatever, it's a movie trailer, it's a fun trailer. We obviously we dig into these things and there's like a lot of things to nitpick about them how like they're weird marketing for the movie.
So no, I don't think anyone had their knives out for this movie.
No,
I don't have my knives out for this movie. There are things I'm worried about. The way I'm hearing this movie treats female characters and stuff, I'm sick of it. I can't. If the worst I've heard about Harley Quinn is true in the movie, I'm probably just done with DC, and I think we're gonna stop talking about it on the podcast.
Yeah,
if we want to,
until Wonder Woman comes out and we reconvene on the topic.
Maybe I might be out. I honestly, Wonder Woman has Zack Snyder's name on it as a producer and a writer. This is the guy who did Sucker Punch. This is the guy who did Batman v Superman. Just because it has a female director does not mean that it will be a bastion of feminism.
Right.
I am fully prepared that could be a horrible stain.
Oh yeah,
on female superheroes.
Of course you should. It is that is a huge possibility.
And I didn't want to say it last week because I know we were all in the afterglow of what was the best trailer the DC Extended Universe has ever cut for anything.
Right.
And I think if any DC movie has a chance of being good, it's that one. It's got Zack Snyder's name on it. I don't know how else to. It's like if it's not that far from putting Frank Miller's name on it, I'm worried about that, and I think you should be too.
Yeah,
this is a company that has shown, or this isn't even a company. The Warner Brothers division that does the DC stuff has shown flagrant disregard for their female characters in a way that probably is the most offensive thing about everything they've done so far. Yeah. And it's seeped into their comics and it's seeped into their animated movies, and it's unacceptable.
Yeah.
And if, the worst thing we can say about Marvel's treatment of women is that scene in Avengers Age of Ultron where Joss Whedon maybe didn't write something as elegantly as he wanted, and some people read out of that things that seem more offensive about Black Widow, which I disagree with, but I understand the argument.
Sure, yeah.
That's a better position to be in than constantly your women are strippers in your movies or are Amy Adams doing nothing.
Yeah. It's...
And also getting naked in your movies, because that's her biggest scene in the film, is naked in the bathroom.
Oh, right, yeah. Yeah, I forgot about that.
Yeah, Again, Zack Snyder, Sucker Punch, that is the movie that I actually linked my review to this the other day, because I think it's a kind of funny review because I go into this stuff. The plot of that movie is that women are in trouble, so they imagine themselves in a brothel to live a better life. That's what he thinks about women.
Yeah, again, Zack Snyder is the Frank Miller of movies. He always has been. We just didn't know it.
All right, let's move on. Other big piece of news this week, really only big piece of news we're going to cover, is reports came out about the Nintendo NX. This was from Engadget?
I think Eurogamer broke
Eurogamer, that's what I mean.
Yeah.
I get those mixed up. I don't know why. But Eurogamer broke this, and a very reliable source, obviously.
Yeah.
And this is kind of our best look yet at what the NX will be. We have had a lot of different rumors.
A lot of like fake controller mock-ups and scams and stuff like that.
But it sounds like we have a very solid idea of what it will be. Some things could change. I think some of the bigger questions still remain.
About like the power of the system and stuff like that is a big question mark right now.
And it's my question mark.
Yeah.
But we're going to get into this. So it sounds like what it is it's a handheld system with, basic controller stuff on both sides and a screen in the middle. And it would be, high-def screen, all this stuff, fairly powerful.
Yeah.
And then you could dock that in a home console, and it would show up on your TV, and you could kind of break the controllers off or maybe use an external controller or something and put it together, and then you could play it on your home console TV.
Yeah.
And they did their own little mock-ups of this. I've seen other mock-ups. And I'm interested to hear what you think. My basic conclusions, I've done a lot of thinking about this because I think it's fascinating.
Yeah.
I think this is a risky thing. If it works, I think it's brilliant. I think this could be exactly what Nintendo needs. I think it could keep them in the handheld market where they're dominant, and it could bring them back into the console market in a way that's innovative. And I think as someone who loves handheld gaming and obviously loves console gaming and loves Nintendo stuff, this could be a perfect marriage of that. My worries are about how exactly it will work. My biggest question mark is the power stuff. Eurogamer, and this was the part they sounded shakiest on.
Yeah.
But it sounds like the chip it's using is, and the graphics processor and stuff is powerful, but it's like an Android sort of powerful, like for Android tablets. It would obviously run better in this case because it's going to be optimized for gaming with a Nintendo operating system and stuff. But it would be, so it would be significantly more powerful than like the PS3 and Xbox One or Xbox 360, but underpowered compared to the PS4 and Xbox One.
Yeah.
And that worries me a little bit. I'm wondering, how does it compare to the Wii U? If Zelda Breath of the Wild is their launch game, is it going to be better or worse than on the Wii U?
Yeah.
What kinds of games are they aiming to make going forward? Those are all questions. I'm very interested, though, to see what it will be. I guess the other part of the report was that it's going to use cartridges, which we'd heard about, which people keep thinking like it's Game Boy cartridges. It's just high density. It makes sense.
Yeah, that is the one thing I really didn't like about the Eurogamer article is that the picture they use is they like photoshopped a Game Boy cartridge with like the Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild artwork on it. It was like, don't do that because now everyone's going to think that that's what it looks like. It's a cool looking picture for your article, but it's like, you didn't think it all the way through because now, like you said, everyone thinks that means like Game Boy cartridges. It's like, you do know that like the Vita and the 3DS both use cartridges, right? Like it's not like that's a completely obsolete media form. If it's going to be mobile, you want cartridges because it's less moving parts.
Well, yeah, and you can fit plenty of storage on these things. There are flash drives with 2 terabytes if you want it, So I don't see that as a problem. But so that's my reaction. What do you think?
Yeah, I think my reaction is more or less similar to you. I think one of my big question marks is like it's both the power. I'm very curious about because I think it's attached to the power is what is like the battery life of this thing going to be, because that's where I think where do they put the emphasis, I guess, is my biggest question. Is is it more of a home thing or more of a mobile thing? Do they sacrifice some of the battery power to get more juice into that thing so it's more impressive as a home console, or sacrifice some of the graphics power so that it has more juice for the battery? How does all that stuff work? That's I think all those very technical questions are very interesting to me, and I think the base concept of the console makes sense. It's an interesting idea. I think it's also related to is it more of a mobile or more of a home thing? I'm curious, how are they going to manage to market this? What are they how are they going to try to push it? What is their real demographic that they're going for? That's what my biggest question is, how is that going to work? Because nobody's really tried this before. That's
a huge question to me, because if it's handheld first, then they're competing with the 3DS, which I really don't think is dead yet. Yeah. And I think it would be, I wonder what their future plans for this kind of stuff is. If this means it's kind of the end of the DS line, then one, that's something to talk about, because that's really significant.
Yeah.
It's one of the most successful things to ever happen in gaming.
Yeah.
And it's something that I don't necessarily see Nintendo just abandoning right now. So it would make sense to me to position it more as a home console thing. And it totally could be. I mean, that's not, I think, ruled out at all by this. But as you say, that's where the questions lie, because... And this is the thing, they're clearly replacing the Wii U.
Yes. Yeah.
But are you also killing the 3DS and replacing that? Because that's less of a sure thing to me. Yeah. And that's less of a necessary thing to me at this juncture, especially having released a new version of the 3DS last year.
Yeah.
So those are kind of the weird questions. Are you just cleaning house and doing it's all new? And I guess I get that as a strategy.
Yeah.
But I don't know.
Yeah, because also part of the Eurogamer article was them, and this is also something that seemed like maybe a little bit fuzzy, was that like the nature of what this thing is going to be. If it is like cartridge based and all that stuff, it would mean that like it cannot be backwards compatible. Like especially like if it can't. But like I think part of the thing is like we don't know the whole situation. Like because if it has like this whole dock that goes into the TV, it is possible that might have some like a disc functionality associated with it that could play Wii U games, or who knows? Like does the tablet part with the screen and the controller, is that also a touch screen? Because if it has all that stuff, it could theoretically play Wii U games, and it could theoretically play DS games if you have a TV in that thing, or it could just emulate DS on there, like have split screens. It would be awkward, but you can do it. Like that's one of the things that to me is kind of really disappointing about this, as someone who has been pretty frustrated with Nintendo for a very long time, but is still like very interested in a lot of the games that Nintendo puts out. And I am about every other month I get so close to buying a 3DS, and then I back off because it's still like I just feel like I can't spend that much money right now because I don't even know if I have the time to play any of these games. But I want to play like Pokemon X, and I want to play Fire Emblem so much, so I keep on like hesitating there. That like if the NX had like 3DS and Wii U backwards compatibility, like that would probably be a no-brainer for me because I don't have a 3DS and I don't have a Wii U. I've missed both of those entire libraries. If I could get something that I knew was going to be supported going forwards, which it would help me justify my purchase, but it would also allow me to get like the 5 or 6 Wii U / 3DS games that I really want to play, I would probably get that maybe day one. But like if it doesn't do that stuff, then it's like a huge question mark for me.
You're not who they're aiming for.
Yeah.
I don't think. And I think this cannot be backwards compatible. To me, I'm just thinking as a business strategy,
right.
You have to ditch the Wii stuff. You cannot have the Wiimotes. You cannot have any of that, depending on that peripheral. It's a huge problem with the Wii U that it is so dependent on the Wii, and the Wii was so dependent on GameCube stuff.
Right.
They have not had a clean break since the N64 broke from like the Super NES.
Right.
They just haven't done it, and so you have. You would play the GameCube, and I guess that was a clean break. But then you'd play the Wii, and most of the time on the Wii, if I'm playing Smash Bros. Or something, I've got a fucking GameCube controller in.
Yeah.
And then on the Wii U, a lot of Wii U stuff I have to play, I have to get all my Wii peripherals out. And if I want to play a virtual console game that was on the Wii but not the Wii U, I have to get the gamepad out, and then I have to go into the Wii menu, and then I have to get a Wiimote out, and then I have to put a classic controller in, and blah, 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 blah.
Right.
So all of this stuff, and it's kind of messy, and I think it really confused people by the end of the Wii U's lifespan. I guess it's not over yet, but by now,
Right.
And so I think if you're going to do the NX and try to get a new audience in, it has to be something that just clearly this is its own thing. And if they can find ways to do certain kinds of backwards compatibility, I think that would be great.
Oh, they will resell you their NES and SNES library.
Well,
don't worry.
No, I mean like what you were suggesting. Like
Right,
I do think it's possible this could be Wii U games, whether it's digital downloads or whether there's a disc tray on the main console hub. I would not be surprised if they find some way to keep Wii U in there, and I don't think that would be too hard or distract from things.
Yeah, I mean, it depends on like what they ultimately like what kind of like architecture and chip they ultimately use. Which is again like Eurogamer has some ideas on it, but it didn't seem like they were 100% sure. But if it doesn't use, I think PowerPC is the base that Wii U uses. If it doesn't use that, they're going to have to come up with an emulation solution, which seems unlikely to me that they would be able to manage the software emulation.
And I don't think there's any chance it'll have any kind of DS backwards compatibility, maybe down the line on a virtual console thing. But one, you wouldn't be able to do the 3D thing with the 3DS. Two, the 3DS has two...
Is that really that important to most 3DS games?
More than you'd think. But also, it's just a thing. It's part of the system.
I mean, there is a console called 2DS that runs 3DS games without the 3D thing already.
And I get it.
You can get that if you want.
I wasn't done. The other thing is there's 2 screens of different aspect ratios, and the resolution is going to be so vastly lower than what this thing is going to be. You would have to do so much work to get it viewable on this screen.
Yeah. That
would be a huge stumbling block as well. So I think the 3DS will continue to be its own thing for at least a little while. But yeah, I'm just so curious. I want to hear the official announcement.
Yeah. It's one of the things that's a little bit frustrating about this. Like, I feel like in some ways this report feels a bit weird because there's some things that it feels so fuzzy about. Whereas, like, when you compare that to when, like, the PS4 Neo stuff leaked, it felt like we just got all of it. We just got the whole fucking thing just dumped in our laps without, other than like video of like the console and games running on the console. We basically understood everything about what they were doing with it. Here, it's like we've got basic ideas of it, but we don't like. We have an idea of what the controller design is like trying to go for, but we don't know what it actually really looks like. We don't like have all those details, and that's it's hard to sort of speculate on a lot of what this is.
Yes, and I'm not sure I believe the Power reports. it seems to me like it'd have to be a little more powerful than what they're talking about. Yeah. Especially because when you look at, people are already starting to talk about, we're developing for the NX, we're excited for the NX, Sonic Generations 2 or whatever it's going to be called is going to be on the NX and the PS4, things like that. Just, it doesn't seem like it's going to be underpowered to the point where it would be prohibitive, or else I don't think you'd have people from Ubisoft and other studios saying we're excited for this thing.
Oh, but they're going to say that no matter what. Like, remember Ubisoft said that they were excited about putting stuff out on the Wii U, and then they put out Zombie U.
No, I know, but I just feel like if you got burned 3 years ago, I don't know if you'd go right back into it.
Ubisoft gets burned every single console side. Like, they put out everything on everything. They just go in hard and heavy every single time, because fuck it, I guess.
But I'm curious, and it's really making me wonder, because this is such a weird hybrid thing, is Zelda Breath of the Wild going to be the big selling point of this at launch, or is that just going to wind up being more of a Wii U game? I was thinking this was going to be a Twilight Princess scenario, but it almost sounds like it could be a little different, where it could be just as much for the Wii U as it is for this thing, and maybe there's a reason they showed it on the Wii U at the E3 floor.
Yeah, like the state of Nintendo right now, I do not think that there is any reason to just assume that this console is going to be successful when it launches. No. Like, I think it's like Nintendo is in a precarious position. It has been since the Wii U failed to take off. And, like, this is an interesting strategy. It is what people have been speculating about for a long time about what Nintendo should do, is combine their mobile side and their console side into one device. And, like, while that is a very interesting idea, I think it is also an idea that could fail horribly, because it sounds super ambitious.
It absolutely could. I do think the flip side to that, though, is it could be genius. I mean, this could be a huge boon in Japan, where if you can combine those two things, you're printing money for yourself with the mobile market there and stuff.
Right.
I think it could be big in America, too, where handhelds still have some kind of stranglehold. And if you can make it look like a tablet where you can play meatier games on, kids will love that stuff. There is a culture around that.
Yeah. But it does, like, it makes you wonder, like, because it is every single year the mobile, like the phone and tablet market gets stronger and stronger and stronger, more powerful, and become much more capable. And then, like, at what point is Nintendo competing more with the iPad than they are with the PS4 and the Xbox One, if they're still staying in that handheld market? Like, will that market continue to exist, I think, is the big question. And is that market the same market as people who play console games?
Yeah, no, it's a total question. So we might as well move on, but it is interesting.
Another part of the Eurogamer article is that Nintendo will say more in September, was the date that was the sort of section they gave. So we'll see if that holds true, and then maybe have more in early September to talk about with the NX.
Yeah, more to come.
Yeah.
All right. Let's talk about Jason Bourne.
Okay, the time has come.
All right, spoilers from here on out.
Right, yeah, because we gave our spoiler-free opinions at the top.
I was really enjoying this movie until Nikki died.
Right, okay.
I'm going to start there, because I feel like I have to start there. I think there is some interesting stuff up top with this movie from the Jason Bourne side.
Right, yeah.
Because I like the little glimpses we see of him just totally nihilistic and, like, defeated and just being a fighter in Greece and just knocking dudes out and getting his money. He's abusing his body. That kind of feels like, that's probably where Jason Bourne would be 10 years later.
Right,
so I kind of like that. And then Nikki comes back, and that's kind of interesting. And I do think the Athens scene is the only scene I would unreservedly say is technically masterful.
Right.
I think it's really interesting. I love how in that scene we basically get introduced on the American side to the Alicia Vikander character, Heather Lee. And we see how Heather is sort of using these new kinds of technology that we know exist, of tracking and hacking phones and all this stuff. And Jason Bourne is, for once, not one step ahead. He's like 3 steps behind.
Yeah.
So it's a very interesting scene on that level. It's got a huge scale to it. And then they decide the only way they can get Jason back into the game is to do the thing with the same way they got him back into the game in the second movie.
Yeah.
And kill his girlfriend. And so there are 3 major female characters in the trilogy. 2 of them have died in the same way to motivate Bourne to get back in the game.
And let's back up. It's not only that Nikki dies that gets him back in the game. It is also that he has remembered something else that he forgot, that is now, like, going even back further to right before he entered the program, not the moment that he did enter the program. And now he needs to get the files and everything to figure out, well, like, why did they were observing me before I was in the program, what's all that? And that also feels like that is a pretty cheap play. And that is specifically, like, the thread with that plot line is by far the worst part of the movie to be, following that shit.
Also,
so, but yeah, that's like that where Nikki dies and that happens is kind of like the crossroads for me of the movie.
What I realized there is that, one, they have no new ideas in terms of how to use their characters, because Nikki dying is it's the laziest possible way to get Bourne back in the game, and it sells out a really good character.
Yeah.
So that's awful. And also, they saddle her with terrible dialogue while she's on screen, and I felt bad for Julia Stiles, who's a really good actress.
Yeah.
There's that. And then, as you say, it intersects with, you start to realize, oh, Bourne has daddy issues. Oh, great. That's what I wanted. And you see that that's intersecting, and you realize they had no idea what to do as a sequel to Bourne Ultimatum, and so they did both Reheated Leftovers and... What were those other movies doing about it? Someone was searching for his father. The Amazing Spider-Man had a great idea about this. Let's take inspiration from that.
Yeah, and for me, it's like it's the combination of the father stuff with just them going back to that same plot device that I felt like the Bourne trilogy dealt with, which is him trying to dig out his past, and Ultimatum is him figuring all that shit out. And I feel like the character has to be forward-looking from this point. I felt like he had to be forward-looking from the point of Bourne Ultimatum if you're going to bring him back. He sure as shit needs to be forward-looking now if they're going to make another one of these movies. Because if the next one, Jason Bourne's thing is, wait, the government was doing something weird with my mom before they were doing something weird with my dad. I have to figure that out. If they do something like that, then I'm totally checked out. There's the stuff that this movie does interestingly is enough for me to be sort of optimistic about a sequel to this. But, if that's the route they go and they mine that hole again, that is, unforgivable for me from a storytelling point of view.
And there were so many obvious ways for him to be a forward-looking character in this movie.
Yeah.
Because, again, I like the basic setup where he remembers everything now, he remembers all his assassinations, and he hates himself for it. And that's how you mine his past from this point forward, is he has guilt, he's trying to figure out who he is now that he's basically lived 2 or 3 different lives.
Yeah.
And the answer is he intersects with the Heather Lee character, and she's kind of trying to lead the CIA in a new direction, and he winds up intertwined somehow. That should be the story.
Yeah.
And everything else is just so messy, I have no clue what they thought thematically they were doing with Jason Bourne in this film.
Yeah.
Up to the end where they just bring out the line from the beginning of Supremacy where it's like, no, Jason, you do have a choice. And then he goes and chases down Vincent Cassel anyway.
Right,
and then he kills him, and I don't really know why he does any of that. And
because the Vincent Cassel character killed his dad. Remember that horrible plot twist? That's why he did it.
Not just kill his dad. Not just kill his dad. He's tied to everything in Jason Bourne's life. Yeah. It's like he's done everything. He's basically the shitty version of Blofeld from Spectre, the James Bond movie. And that's the other thing. That's this theme in The Amazing Spider-Man and Spectre and these recent movies where you have long-running characters and you decide the only way we can do new stuff with them is to retcon their past to make it just uninteresting and boring and shitty.
And just super cliche. I don't need to see a story where Jason Bourne realizes that his dad was assassinated by the CIA dude and now he has to go kill him. Because it was already unnecessary. You didn't, you could have come up with reasons for those two characters to fight that were already present in the plot. You did not need to pile on top of it. That was the biggest eye roll moment of me for the whole movie. The plot was just, steadily getting, more eye rolly in terms of, oh, they're getting this his dad and all this dad stuff, and blah, blah, blah. Yeah. It's oh, God. And then it's and then this dude we've never fucking seen before apparently was working with Tommy Lee Jones, way before Bourne Identity happened, and he killed Jason Bourne's dad. Fucking what?
I mean, apparently Jason Bourne's dad started Treadstone.
Yeah.
It's literally the plot of The Amazing Spider-Man, where his dad did everything and then was killed, and now he has to figure it out.
Yeah.
And that is not the movie you should be ripping off for your fucking Bourne sequel.
Yeah.
And now you shouldn't be ripping it off for anything. It's awful. But, that's especially not something this good.
Right.
But I'm just baffled by the way they use character throughout this, because so Nikki barely counts because she's in 20 minutes.
Yeah.
So really, for the majority of the movie, the only returning character is Matt Damon, and he's barely in this movie. I mean, he has almost no lines. And I know we talked about how in the other movies he doesn't talk a lot. He has a lot more dialogue than this.
Right.
He's really barely a presence, so it's almost all new characters. And other than the Alicia Vikander character, who I think they really sell out in the last 5 minutes, I'll talk about that.
Yeah.
But other than that, who they really try to make her own thing, the Tommy Lee Jones character, the Vincent Cassel character, all these people are characters who were supposed to have been in it all along. We just didn't see them.
Yeah.
And I hate that kind of storytelling.
Yeah. It's like you said, it's the wrong way to try to make a sequel is to go back. Especially when like you had, because we talked about when we did our podcast about that trilogy, that it feels like that is like one story that it like is done and told by the end of Ultimatum. It's like you start at the Bourne Identity and it wraps around to like symbolically the same shot at the end of Bourne Ultimatum from the beginning of Identity. Like done. If you're going to make more movies with these characters, which you obviously and certainly can do, like it has to be something new and different, and it has to be something forward-looking. It has to be something that pushes the franchise into the next step to like a modern generation kind of thing. And it feels like the Lisa Vikander part of the movie does that, and it feels like weirdly enough the Jason Bourne part of the movie doesn't.
No, and it's so hard to untangle these things sometimes because the actual like forward momentum plot of the movie is. I want to say two. It's really like 10 things, but you can kind of boil it down to 2 things.
Right.
And it's Bourne trying to figure out the shit about his father, and it's this weird thing with a like Facebook-esque company called Deep Dream.
Yeah.
Which
is a terrible name. Just an awful name.
All the good stuff where they were good at writing technology 10 years ago, they're not anymore.
Yeah.
They lost that. So that is like something that is going to go online and spy on everyone, and so that's another plot, and they're kind of related, but they're kind of not. And Alicia Vikander, you pretty much think you know her motivations, and then sometimes the movie kind of sells her short, I think.
Okay.
And then, you get to Las Vegas, and by the time he gets to Las Vegas, I had given up. I don't know what Bourne was there for. I don't know what he was trying to accomplish. It seemed like, in one sense, he was kind of going along with Heather Lee and trying to stop something bad happening, so he's being heroic.
Right.
But really all he does once he gets there is try to figure out his own shit, and then it turns out they killed Tommy Lee Jones, so everything's okay. So the Deep Dream thing was never really a threat because they killed Tommy Lee Jones. So that, like, I literally did not understand the plot in the last like 40 minutes of this movie. It makes no sense, and not just. And I mean, I literally understand what happens.
Right.
It's that I don't know what we're supposed to be getting out of it. That's my biggest problem. Is I have no idea what they as filmmakers want me to understand from this story.
Yeah, and I definitely agree with that to a certain. Like, I don't think I have as much of a problem there as you do with that stuff. But like, there is there's just moments where like when Jason Bourne refuses to kill the Tommy Lee Jones character, and then
Heather Lee.
Yeah, Heather Lee comes in and shoots him. Like that's a part where like I don't quite know why Bourne hesitates there. Like I don't like. It feels like the movies has never like built up that like argument the way that like when he refuses to shoot the guy at the end of Supremacy who killed Marie, like that feels like that is part of what that movie's argument is, of like where they're trying to get the Bourne character to sort of redeem himself and like refuse to be an assassin, and so he doesn't shoot the dude at the end of the movie. That makes sense. Here it feels like he doesn't have that character arc at any point. It feels like
he's no character arc.
He is a static character, and I don't have a problem. And actually I think Jason Bourne should be a static character from now. I don't think there's much more to do with him to change him. He is a character who is from the past, and he's like symbolically resonant. I think both, like, he needs to be symbolically resonant within the diegesis of the film because he is this like whistleblower figure. He's like this guy who's very important if you are in like the secret shit in the government. So he's important in that aspect symbolically. And then for us as filmgoers, he's important symbolically. But as a character, he's done. That's why you need the Heather Lee character to come in and be the new generation of like, she's not the action star, but she's where like the thematic and character material really comes from. And I think that's the right idea. The problem is it feels like they are trying to sort of like do that and then still have their weird Bourne plot at the same time. And so both of those things are pulling away from one another.
They are, but this is the Tommy Lee Jones stuff really does confuse me because, you kill him because he's an asshole. Okay, I get that.
Sure, yeah.
What does it accomplish in any way?
It allows the Heather Lee character to rise up higher in the CIA.
Okay, that's for the next movie. Doesn't do anything for this movie. I
think it does stuff for the argument of like of her, like of this new generation of people that are simultaneously like they feel like they are like this new generation that is like now has this new familiarity with technology and understands this world they live in the way that like the Tommy Lee Jones and Jason Bourne generation don't. But at the same time, they are still victims of the same structures of power that they think they are trying to sort of like circumvent. I feel like that's the argument that that's the Foucault kind of argument the movie's making to me.
No, I think it's poorly making it, but it's making it.
Sure, but most movies wouldn't even try to make it, I guess.
No, I get that totally. But again, I can't get over this with the Tommy Lee Jones thing, because we have all this other stuff tied in with it. Like, the Deep Dream stuff doesn't need to be a part of the movie. It's so superfluous by the time you get there, because they're really implying that they have to do something about this larger issue, and whistleblowing is a part of the movie at the beginning and then gets completely forgotten about because Jason decides he's not going to leak any of this other stuff, which I don't know why, but he decides he's not going to do that, and he decides at the end, like, he's really just out for the Tommy Lee Jones character, and they don't do anything to make the other stuff come out clear.
Right.
And at the end, the Riz Ahmed character, who's totally disconnected from everything else, he's the head of Deep Dream.
Yeah.
He was going to confess, but then he doesn't. So the status quo hasn't really changed there. So it's just like, as a action climax, I think if you look at the other movies, it's very clear what the goal is of the movies and what is accomplished at the end. I don't know what sense of accomplishment for any of this we're going to get. And I think you totally could go with the, as you say, Foucault-style argument where the sense of accomplishment is sort of a circular one where it's degrees of change and not whole change, and that it actually doesn't change that much. That's not what they're like building towards, though, and how they do it, especially when you still end with the giant fucking car chase where Jason's motivation is just pure revenge, I guess.
Yeah, it does. Like, I think there's an element of the Jason Bourne character where he's so nihilistic throughout the whole movie that I guess maybe that's why I don't have a big issue with it. Is like, I have an issue with like the specifics of the motivations, but like I don't have a huge issue with how they're playing out. I agree that like the Deep Dream stuff is very messy, but I don't think it's like, I think it's just poorly developed, and it's actually, it's like probably for me, the worst scene in the whole movie is when Tommy Lee Jones and the Deep Dream guy are in the cafe and they have that conversation that is just, the dialogue in that scene is unbelievably hacky. Like, because we talked a lot about in the Bourne Trilogy podcast about how good they are with their exposition of being very visual and never telling you shit. And that was a scene where it was like the first draft of two characters talking to each other where like the writer just had the characters saying literally what they are thinking, and like, but never saying what either of these characters would ever say in a conversation. Like, it was completely insane, the dialogue in that scene to me.
All the stuff surrounding Deep Dream is awful. Riz Ahmed, who plays that character, is a really good actor. If you've ever seen like Nightcrawler, he's on this show on HBO right now called The Night Of. Great actor. He's awful in this because he's saddled with the worst dialogue in the movie, where like the scene where he also announces Deep Dream, and he's like, "Don't worry, you will be safe," and everyone applauds. It's like it's like someone had heard of like a Mark Zuckerberg character or a Steve Jobs presentation, but never actually watched one.
They talked to someone who watched The Social Network when it was in the theater.
Yes.
Yeah. It is like, like it does feel like their grasp of the like modern tech culture is thin at best. Like, it is like and it's something where it's one of those things where I feel like there's an idea there of like, well, that is an element of like our culture that has changed significantly, and that you can, because it's something that where these tech companies have had such a huge presence in our lives, and the government obviously wants to and is involved with that in a sort of shadowy way in a lot of areas. And so I understand the storytelling impulse. I just think, as with a lot of stuff in the movie, it's just horribly done.
It's horribly done. And when you lay it all on the Tommy Lee Jones character, which ultimately, and I get there are thematic arguments around this, but in the movie that was made and we watched in theaters, the whole point is you kill him, you fix the fucking problem. He's the bad guy. I think
the movie is saying that you want to kill him because you think that's going to fix the problem, but of course that's not going to fix the problem. Maybe that is one of the reasons why Jason Bourne doesn't kill him, because he knows that doesn't fucking solve anything, because the people that replace him are just going to be worse because they're going to be more effective than he was because they understand how things work now.
I get that, but what I'm saying is, one, that's an argument they made better in Bourne Identity, Bourne Supremacy, and Bourne Ultimatum. Sure. They did it in all three of those movies, and they did it better. And two, if you do that, you can't just have him be sneering one-dimensional villain the entire movie. This is, one, it's a waste of Tommy Lee Jones, because he can play nuance, and he's not allowed to here. And if you just, even whatever your thematic point is, if you make him the big villain, and all evil seems to emanate from him, and that's how you tonally present it, which I do think is how it's tonally presented in the movie, is he's the big bad you got to take out. Even the Vincent Cassel character, it all comes from him. The point of the Bourne movies has always been it's the system, it's not individuals. Sometimes you have individuals who go a little off the rails, like the Brian Cox character,
right.
But the reason why the Bourne Ultimatum is the best is there's no antagonist. Well, there's antagonists, but there's no villains. You have Noah Vosom, who is not a bad guy, I don't think.
Yeah.
But he's a part of the system. That's the kind of character they wanted to do here. And for me, also, like, even if they did that right, it would feel a little hollow, because I already saw them do it.
Yeah, I think there's something where... Because I think they do, well, like, again, like, it's something where you have to have, like, an asterisk next to everything I say of, like, they do it clunkily, but they do set up with the Alicia Vikander character that she is trying to rise up the ranks. That is something she is actively trying to do. That's why she wants to be assigned to the Jason Bourne case. She's this very go-getter kind of character that is trying to get her presence and her voice in the CIA and is willing to do whatever she needs to go do that, right? And so I think, well, again, I think it's clunky. I do think that argument is there. I think it would be much better if the Tommy Lee Jones character was a lot more subtle. But I think the argument still exists and was reasonably effective for me by the end.
Okay, I don't disagree that the argument's there. That's what I'm saying. It's there, but you say that, and I'm thinking, how much more interesting would I find all of that if Tommy Lee Jones was playing a character and not an evil cipher?
Yeah, no, it would be a much better movie if they did that.
So let's talk about the Heather Lee character.
Okay.
She is the best part of this movie. One, Alicia Vikander is just great in this.
Yeah.
She gives a performance that honestly reminds me of Matt Damon in the other movies.
Sure.
Where sometimes she's talking, sometimes she's not, but she is always thinking, and through her body language and facial expressions, so much is being conveyed. Which is, I don't think Matt Damon is allowed to do here ever in this movie. Yeah. So she's really, really good on that level. But yeah, as you say, as a plot of this woman who is very smart, understands the way things have changed, is ostensibly ahead of Jason Bourne until the plot requires her not to be sometimes.
Yeah, it's the very, very end of the movie I was pretty annoyed by.
I'm annoyed by that, and I hate the whole sequence in London where she's there and she doesn't guess that Tommy Lee Jones is just going to fuck her over. What's she thinking?
Yeah.
And Tommy Lee Jones's plan is to. We'll talk about the body count in this movie.
Although maybe she was just relying on Tommy Lee Jones to fuck her over in the first place.
Which I don't like that kind of plot.
Yeah, no.
Anyway, so again, when the movie allows her to be interesting, she's interesting, and so you're rising up the ranks. And again, I can imagine a really interesting version of this story where it's Jason Bourne kind of comes out for whatever reason and realizes he's basically outmoded at this point.
Yeah, he's a fossil.
He's a fossil, and there's this new way of doing things, and they kind of hint at that at the Athens sequence where he is so far behind them, and behind this Heather Lee character in particular, and then maybe at some point over the course of the movie, she is trying to bring him back in, and she gets him to come back in on some level.
Yeah.
That's an interesting actual character change where he accepts, he can, kind of in a James Bond kind of way, he can be her blunt instrument, and that's his role in the world now.
Yeah.
But that's not what they ultimately went with in a clear sense anyway.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's something where, to go to, the very end, it's something where, honestly, I think the movie would be actually significantly more effective at what it's trying to say if they didn't have the final twist of, where she, is talking to the one CIA dude, this is okay, she says all this stuff about, we'll bring him in, and now we'll kill him, and all that shit. And then she meets up with Jason Bourne, and then she finds the thing in the car that's Jason Bourne knew the whole time. It's it's that final step that's no, Jason Bourne shouldn't be ahead of this character. Even if they never made another sequel, it would end, because I think that would be a much more interesting direction to leave open for a sequel. I think they could still basically do the same thing, because fucking whatever with that the very last, 1 minute of the movie. But, within just the movie itself and ignoring the potential of a sequel, I think it's a more effective argument to leave it open that, Jason Bourne can be subsumed by the system again, that he can't escape it. It is part of how power, the systems of power that society operates in works, that you cannot escape it all the way, no matter how far you think you've gone. It is still operating on you, and you just can't escape it. You can't ignore it. You are a part of that system. And you always will be. And
I totally think that would be interesting, but the ending of the movie totally undermines that just completely, because he beats the system and he walks off, and it's so funny that they even botched just the Moby needle drop here, because if you think of all the other movies, when the Moby song comes in, it's either Jason Bourne doing something insanely cool, like at the end of Supremacy, or it's a big character shift moment. But here it's just, he's going to get a sandwich, I guess? What are we supposed to think about how Jason Bourne has changed, or what he has learned about himself, or anything at the end of this movie, other than he did what he did before, and he did it again, and even though it didn't look like he was smarter than any of these people, he was, and now he's just going to walk around Washington, D.C. freely, because that's a thing, apparently.
Yeah, it just feels like that ending exists to have the cool Jason Bourne ending, or what they're trying to go for as the cool Jason Bourne ending, and not because that's what the movie is trying, clumsily as it is, what it is ultimately building up to, which is him being duped in some way. Not necessarily being I don't want the movie to end with him joining the CIA again, but ending the movie with that door being open and him being hesitant about it, I think is clearly the right way to end the movie.
Yes.
It feels like they basically ended like you could end the movie that way. You just have to pause the movie 1 minute before it's over,
Yes.
and the movie ends that way.
Oh, and it would be significantly stronger.
Yeah.
I won't disagree with you on that. The ending killed any enthusiasm I had. It's also just clunky, like the way it's edited and everything, where it's just kind of slow and silent, and she's in the car with the dude and has the conversation she had like word for word earlier with Tommy Lee Jones, and then she gets out of the car and she goes to talk to Jason, and they have this conversation, and then she goes back and she gets in her car and she has the thing. We listen to the whole conversation again, and that's not even when they do the Moby Needle drop.
Yeah.
Then we go back to Jason and he goes off to get his sandwich, and that's when we get it, and we end, and it's like, oh, that felt like it was 20 minutes.
Yeah, you're right. It's a sequence that needs to be a lot more snappy. It just like there's too many parts to it.
The whole movie needs to be snappier.
Yeah.
This feels significantly closer in tone to the Bourne Legacy than to any of the other three movies. I talked a lot last week about how the Bourne Legacy, like the movies are great because a lot of it is nonverbal and they're kind of parsed down as scripts. But then the Bourne Legacy didn't understand it because it's like all dialogue all the time. It's very confusing. Too many layers of plots. This is a lot of that. There's even the action, except for the car chase in Vegas. Every action sequence is the same thing in this movie. It's basically a watered-down version of the Waterloo Station sequence in Bourne Ultimatum, where it's like little kind of foot chases, kind of not, and people walking around, and a lot of people talking to each other, but with a significant amount more dialogue and technical dialogue than there ever was in the other movies. And it just, at some point, it's just boring. I mean, we got to the final car chase, and I should have been excited for a Bourne car chase, and I was just like, please end. I don't care. There's nothing going on that I'm supposed to care about at this point.
Yeah.
So, and I also thought from a visual standpoint, I thought Vegas was a weird choice. I don't think it fit with the aesthetic of the series.
Sure, yeah.
I think they shot it very well. But, I mean, and also that car chase is, to me, tonally so out of whack, where, like, he's in the SWAT car and he, like, runs over 30 cars in a row or something.
Right, yeah.
And there's a lot of tonal out of whack. Like, the amount of bodies the Vincent Cassell character drops makes no sense.
Yeah.
He just kills 4 fucking CIA agents in one scene, and apparently Tommy Lee Jones thought that was a good idea.
Yeah, and also the thing that was also another thing that was weird about his character is when you ultimately find out, how old is he? Because he was like an active agent when he killed Jason Bourne's dad. Like, presumably he was an experienced agent at that point, because they wouldn't like have some novice to pull a job like that. But then also, I guess he wasn't in like their super agent like Treadstone programs, because he was already like well established as a CIA agent at that point. So it's like, how old is he, and how is he this effective? That's like, it feels like they did a good job about feeling consistent of like, Jason Bourne, through his like rigorous, insane, like indoctrinated training, is far more effective than like any normal person, and you need another like crazy indoctrinated agent to be at the level to kind of compete with him. You like normal people can't fight Jason Bourne. He's going to kick their fucking ass.
Right, and you know, when it started and they show it's clearly it's Vincent Cassell as the assassin in this movie, I thought, okay, that's kind of interesting, because in the other Paul Greengrass movies, and it's different in the Bourne Identity because you have like Clive Owen, but in the other Paul Greengrass movies, the assassins really aren't characters.
Yeah.
They're bodies, they're agents, and there's a thematic point being made there. You know, you have
they're weapons of the government.
You have Carl Urban in the second movie, but he's not really being used for his acting chops so much as, you know, sort of his look and his skill as kind of just as a body in this movie. And so I was like, okay, they have Vincent Cassell. He's playing an older character. This is a good actor. Clearly, they're going to do something where they try to make the assassin into a character. I want to see where they go with this, and I realized by the end, there's a reason you don't do that in these movies, because it doesn't, even if you do a good job at it, it's kind of tough to do that when you have Bourne as your main character. And
I think you could do it, but like you can't do it by giving him, like I thought was like another sort of bit of like what just felt like non-Bourne writing was his like initial motivation, which was after Bourne did his whole whistleblowing thing, that he got captured by like the Chinese or someone and was tortured for like 2 or 3 years or something. Like that just doesn't, like that feels like that is literally a plot to like a 24 season that does not feel like a Bourne thing, you know? Like it's too comic booky of a character motivation, it felt.
Yes.
And then also that it feels like that character motivation is like nothing, because then you realize, because that's when you think, this is just like this is a leftover Blackbriar agent But he's not a leftover Blackbriar agent. He is some fucking old assassin dude from
Who somehow
back
got
in the day.
into Blackbriar, even though everything we knew about those programs was they wouldn't hire a 20-year-old assassin.
Although I don't think they didn't. I don't think any dialogue necessarily confirmed that he was actually in the Blackbriar program. It was just like he was in an operation that was part of the documents that Jason Bourne exposed and leaked. That's so it's not necessarily is a part of the Blackbriar program, but he was part of some of the Black Ops or something of the CIA. Because I feel like if they was supposed to be a Blackbriar agent, I think they would have probably made that a little bit more explicit. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's a very frustrating movie in a lot of ways.
It's hugely frustrating, and it gets more frustrating the more it goes along because I just kept realizing there's nothing here in how it's presented to me. At least there's interesting things I can kind of grasp at in the version of this movie that doesn't exist, but sadly it's not up there on the screen most of the time. The Alicia Vikander character, if it weren't for her, I would have blown my brains out at some point because there's just it's dull.
I mean, the movie would have had nothing if that character was not in there. Like that character is the linchpin of everything that this movie does right.
Like, I do not understand why Matt Damon came back for this. I do not understand what script he read where he thought, that will challenge me as an actor. He doesn't need the money. That's not it. He doesn't need the exposure. He's fucking got an Oscar nomination and everything for The Martian last year. He's on a career high at this point.
Maybe he just wanted an excuse to get fucking ripped. Maybe that was just sitting around and was like, I just want to do, I see all these fucking superhero comic book guys, and they get all these movies where then they just get these insane personal trainers and get fucking ripped in 3 months. I want to do that. Let's just make another Bourne movie.
And I get it. He gets to work with Paul Greengrass, go around the world, all of that. It's fun to get the band back together. But I don't know what Paul Greengrass got out of this as a director. He shouldn't be writing his own movies. I don't know did he write Captain Phillips? I'd have to look that up. But that's a much better written movie if he did.
I'll look it up right now.
Okay. I just don't know. And, I have no interest in them doing another one of these. One, I don't want Paul Greengrass wasting more of his career on what is, I think, at best, kind of a dead end. I don't need to see these characters again. There's things that I think you could turn the ship around and do interesting things with, but it's not such a home run slam dunk to me that I feel like I desperately need another one. I'm perfectly happy for this to be it, and I just kind of forget about it, and the trilogy is the trilogy. I think this was not something that ever really should have had a sequel, and it did, and oh well.
Yeah. Just as a point of order, Captain Phillips was screenplay by Billy Ray. So.
Okay, yeah. This might be the first movie of his that Paul Greengrass wrote. He wrote it with the editor, Christopher Rouse, and I don't think they're writers.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that comes across in the dialogue.
And I know the movie was very rushed. I mean, it basically went from announcement to release in under a year. I mean, it really came together probably too fast. And that's how this stuff goes sometimes. See Suicide Squad in theaters this weekend. But, I don't know. I'm disappointed. Yeah,
I am definitely disappointed in this movie. I think I am more optimistic for the idea of a sequel to this one than you are. I think there is... Well, there's certainly a chance that it could be just as bad or worse than as this movie was. I think there's also there is something to be said about it is hard to bring characters back that have been sidelined for years and years and years, and to sort of find their place in something new. And generally, that is a failed experiment. But it is much easier once you have that first movie out to then use that as we don't have to try to figure out we don't have to figure out what this character has been doing in the interim. We don't need to find a reason to bring this character back in. This character is back into play. I think they can make a good sequel. I don't know if they will. I don't know if they will make a sequel at all. And if they do, I don't know if they'll make a good one. But I think it's definitely open. I think they should get someone else to write the screenplay. But
I get that. It's just at this point, I like Matt Damon so much, and I like Paul Greengrass so much, I'd like to see them do other things.
Sure.
And if they do them together or whatever, I just, artists have a finite amount of time on this earth. I don't know if I need them wasting time. And maybe it's not wasting time.
Yeah, I'm saying, I think I want Matt Damon and Paul Greengrass to make good movies, and I think a sequel to this movie could be a good movie. I don't think, there's enough good ideas at its core, as bad as it is as exposing it, that I think with a lot of the sort of narrative work of bringing the character out of the way, you could make a much better sequel to this movie that would be very interesting. You could make a great sequel to this movie if they had it in them. And they might have it in them.
Maybe. I just don't know. I mean, let's talk about the trend of sequels underperforming, though.
Okay.
Because I think no matter what, this is a case of studios needing franchises even when that franchise has no clear reason to exist in this day and age.
Right.
Or it's done or something. And it's just every sequel this summer, almost every sequel this summer, with the exception of something like Finding Dory, which is an unmitigated success. The Box Office Mojo has even calculated this. The average decline from the previous film in the franchise is 14.4%, and you could literally predict Bourne got, I think it was like 13.5. Like that's, and then you can just predict that because that's what the previous one got. And people are saying this was impressive for Jason Bourne this weekend, 60 million. Bourne Ultimatum did 70 10 years ago. Right. I don't think that's good. I'm sorry. That's a $10 million drop over 10 years, which adjusted for inflation. That's big. That is not the powerhouse it once was.
Right.
And that has been true for Star Trek Beyond. It was true for Ghostbusters. It was true for... I've missed a lot of the sequels probably, but there's just a lot of them. Even
that Snow White movie?
That doesn't count. That's just a flop. A lot of these aren't flops. Like, sexist people online are trying to make it seem like the Ghostbusters movie was a flop. It's not. It's the highest grosser any of the people involved with that movie have ever had. It's just, I think people were thinking it could be much bigger than it was.
Right.
I think it did fine, but there could have been bigger expectations. I mean, there's clearly franchise fatigue out there. Even Captain America Civil War, which I don't think anyone is disappointed by the performance of that movie. It's a $1 billion plus grosser. It's huge. They didn't lose a cent on it. They made a lot of money. It's a success. Did lower than Avengers Age of Ultron. It was positioned kind of as an Avengers sequel. So it was bigger than Captain America 2, but Marvel wanted that to be Avengers 3.
Right.
And so just even things like that, there's clearly franchise fatigue in the water. And, some of these sequels have been necessary and fun. And, I'm glad we get our Star Trek Beyond and things like that. I'm glad we got our new Ghostbusters. But I really wonder, does Hollywood just, close their ears and go, nah, I can't hear you, and just keep doing the same thing? Or do they learn something from this summer, which has been pretty disappointing at the box office if you think sequels should grow, which if you don't think sequels should grow, why are you making sequels?
There's
the question.
That is not a good way to run a business, have declining returns year after year.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, it's something where, it'll be interesting to see how this goes going forward. If it is really that people are just getting tired of sequels and getting tired of this sort of the heavy franchisation of Hollywood movies, which has been that way for a long fucking time. That that is not a good environment for people to start trying to make their cinematic shared universes.
Nope.
Of the King Kong's universal that shit that they're trying to start up, the DC shit they're trying to start up, all that stuff is that is a bad direction to go in. It'll be interesting to see if the Star Wars movies are affected by this in any way.
I think some things are safe. I think Marvel is safe at the moment. In part because there's enough diversification that it doesn't necessarily feel to a general audience like sequels all the time.
Yeah.
Even if they technically are and it's all shared. I think Star Wars is safe for the moment. Just because I think they're trying to mix it up enough every year. There's enough hunger for it.
But the fact that they are putting a Star Wars movie out every year, I wonder if that's what's going to do it for them. No,
but I think in a couple years. I don't think this year or next year. I think where we might see that is so we've got Rogue One this year that I think people are excited for. We've got Episode 8 next year. I think that'll be a big hit because people loved Episode 7.
Yeah.
The next one after that is the Han Solo movie. That's the one where I would look is that where it falls off? Because people don't either want that or need that, even if it's good, which I think it could be because I like the talent behind it. But that's where I would maybe see after we've done 3 in 3 years, then our fourth year, maybe that's where it falls off. So anyway, I'm getting off track, but I think so. There's some things that I think are grandfathered in and are okay because I think they're reading the mood of audiences well enough. But then I think there's a lot of other stuff where I don't see a world in which DC pulls this around and gets it to Marvel level grosses and stuff. I think if they want to do this, they're going to have smaller budgets and smaller movies and just accept that. And it's going to be a different kind of thing.
And hire someone that's not Zack Snyder to make the movies.
Yes, they're going to have to accept that. I think a lot of other studios are going to have to figure out new things. I think you don't make Jason Bourne 2. I think you figure out a new character because once upon a time, the Bourne identity was this sort of weird little action movie that could and just became bigger and bigger and bigger. And people forget about how you build franchises.
Yeah.
Like Fast and Furious movies. I think those are grandfathered in for now. But people are forgetting the thing Fast and Furious taught people, which is that you can take something that just seems like this little weird action movie, and over time, if you nurture it enough, it becomes something everyone on Earth loves and makes billions of dollars.
Yeah, you just put The Rock in it. Maybe that's what the solution to all this is. Every movie just has to have The Rock in it somewhere.
And it's weird to me that Disney is chasing stuff and Pixar is chasing stuff like the number of sequels they're doing, when their success stories are in their original movies.
Yeah.
Like, they're going to do Frozen 2 because obviously they're going to do Frozen 2. But they did Frozen, and that was huge. And they did Wreck-It Ralph, and that was huge. They did Big Hero 6, and that was huge. And this year they did Zootopia, and that grossed almost as much as Frozen. To me, the lesson there is don't do sequels. Do things that excite your audiences and just kind of risk that.
Yeah.
But even then, they are devoting time to original things. So they've got their head in the right. Disney knows what they're doing. I don't know if any other studio in the town knows it.
Yeah, and I think like it's also like going back to the Marvel point. I think it also is that you have what Marvel manages to do is that it has each of its successful heroes, and it does like every 3 years puts out a sequel for one of their movies, but then also has new movies coming out that get people, like especially people like me, very excited to see like the Doctor Strange movie or the Black Panther movie or the Captain Marvel movie, and it's stuff where it's like, you know, we're on like Thor 3 and stuff like that coming up next, but then also Guardians of the Galaxy 2. And so it's like you have the middle sequel, if they're going to be trilogies, you have the first sequel to the Guardians of the Galaxy movies. It's like, oh, cool. We get to revisit those characters for the first time while we have the Thor characters that we have seen for a while, and we get to visit them, and maybe some people are kind of tired of that. And then at the same time, then we have the Doctor Strange characters that are all new for the audience. Like, that keeps the excitement up and keeps the brand interesting and vibrant, you know?
Yeah, and I think they're trying something similar with Star Wars. I think they know what they're doing with animation, where it's a good mix of originals with sequels for particular things. You know, so I think, and you know, Disney's got all their remakes, but it feels like they've gotten to a point where some of those are genuinely so interesting, like The Jungle Book, that it doesn't feel like a cash grab. That movie did not feel like that once you were in the theater seeing it.
Right.
And it succeeded from word of mouth. It was a good movie. I mean, and that's the basic thing, is you have to make a good movie. It's okay to make a sequel if you have a clear reason to make that sequel. But I think a lot of people, the clear reasons aren't always there. I think, you know, and I wonder, I think there are things from this summer that we're going to look back at differently. I think they could do a Ghostbusters 2, and maybe a lot of that baggage is taken off of it, and the next one could be just a massive hit. I totally think that could happen, and we could look back, and it's not a disappointment, and I don't think it is now, but it could be, you know, that perception could go away entirely. But, you know, like, and there's other weird things in how the business is changing. I don't think anyone in America is even aware that a new Ice Age movie just opened. But it did. There was
I had completely forgotten, but I saw there was a poster at the movie theater when I went to go see Jason Bourne.
It completely bombed in the United States. 20 million opening weekend. It's already a huge hit because that series is way more popular abroad than it is at home. And it's animated so you can easily just cast actors from all over the world.
Right.
And they're animals, so, you know, it doesn't really matter nationality and that sort of thing. And that just, I don't even know, they might not even bother releasing the next Ice Age here. There's a, you know, blockbuster coming out later this year in China called The Great Wall.
Yeah. That's
made by the American company Legendary, or at least co-funded by them, directed by Zhang Yimou, who is one of the biggest directors in Chinese history, starring Matt Damon and then a bunch of other Chinese actors like Andy Lau. And, you know, and that's sort of a half and half, where it's in English, but it's really for Chinese audiences. It's not coming out here until February.
Yeah.
How soon until they just make a movie in Chinese with a Chinese audience, and that's who they're aiming for, because, frankly, that's where the dollars are.
Then maybe fucking Americans will learn how to read subtitles, and I can watch my fucking like weird Japanese movies I want to see in theaters. God damn it!
I mean, Warcraft bombed as hard as a movie possibly could here.
Yeah,
it made huge money in China. If I were them, I would. Here's what I would do: make Warcraft 2 in Chinese with a Chinese cast. That is a slam dunk.
That sounds way more interesting of a movie to me already.
But because
that part of that is that Warcraft is also a brand that has massive appeal over there. So like that, it's not just like some weird phenomena. It's like, no, Blizzard is probably counting on we have a massive worldwide base of fans.
They were not counting on that though, like how big it was in China, and that it would just fall on its face in America. But that's what's audiences around the world are getting to be much more important than America. And I think,
like a lot of movies don't like premiere first in America anymore. No. Like they are overseas for a couple of years.
I do think the current business model is very untenable moving forward, because it is this thing where you have either little micro movies or giant ass blockbusters that have to make $1 billion to make a profit, and that means you cannot rely on America because there's not $1 billion worth of profit there unless your name is the Star Wars: The Force Awakens.
Yeah,
not the Star Wars: The Force Awakens. And other than that, you know, you have to rely on a global audience. But if America just dries up in the process, and that's where you make your movies, it becomes more and more untenable. So that's all I'm saying, and I think
the situation with like the way people watch movies is changing, like where like the home theater stuff is like, and then being able to watch movies on Netflix and the quality of Blu-ray and all of that, and the relative lack of quality of movie theaters at this point, I think also contributes to people not wanting to go to movie theaters.
No, I mean, this is the most... We've talked about this so many times. I know I'm beating a dead horse, but it baffles me that movie theaters simultaneously bitch and moan about lower attendance and at the same time make it the shittiest presentation possible.
Yeah.
There are 2 theaters left in town I go to. And otherwise, I don't care. I'm not going to go to the movies. It'll look better on my fucking TV.
Yeah.
It's the end of the day, that's what it is. So it's confusing to me that's... And I know I'm a more technically inclined person with this, and you the same way, but you don't have to be to realize you left the fucking lights on in the back of the theater or something crazy like that. I don't know.
Or you never turned on the 3D in my 3D movie and now everything's just fucked. Or like the volume is just insanely low and even I can't even understand what people are saying anymore.
Yeah. So I'm curious. I just think we're in for some rough times with Hollywood with some very clear bright spots, but also some things that are just, we're going to suffer through even if we like it. I don't know. It's weird.
Yeah, it feels like it is a moment for a lot of that kind of like old forms of media. There's a sea change needs to happen. Like you see, like we talked about earlier, we talked about BoJack Horseman and Stranger Things on Netflix, which are way more interesting shows than what most of the networks are trying to make. And they also are hugely popular just through sheer quality and word of mouth.
And TV has completely made that sea change.
Yeah.
Like, there's the 5 broadcast networks. Well, 4 CW has helped to make that sea change, too. They're the most acclaimed broadcast network at this point, which is hilarious to me. But the other 4, CBS, NBC, Fox, ABC, they're completely irrelevant. They don't... Yeah. There's not a critics' top 10 list that'll have more than like 1 or 2 of their shows. And so TV, that sea change is done.
Yeah, CBS is trying to use their new Star Trek show to push their streaming service, for God's sake.
Yeah, and CBS is weirdly forward-looking in that way. Yeah. So that sea change is here. I wonder how movies respond, or if... I really think if you study movie history, I think we're near an inflection point where things are just going to shift again.
Yeah, that's what seems like what it has to be.
Yeah. So, we'll see.
Yeah, interesting times ahead, Things are changing. Things are moving.
Yes.
Movies are changing. TV shows are changing. The NX is imminent. Nothing is safe anymore. We're all in danger.
Speaking of movies,
okay,
Sean, the other day I got an email. I get a newsletter from Right Stuff, which is the anime site.
Yeah, I'm familiar.
I bought stuff from there, and I usually just go through and delete a bunch of emails every morning, like spam I get.
Yeah.
And I just was going through and I see things very fast, and the Right Stuff one came up and it had a little picture in the corner of Persona 3, the movie number 4.
Yes.
And I was like, oh shit! Wait, when does that come out? And I looked it up. And I'm like, it's out today. And so I'm like, oh, I have to order this shit. I knew it was coming out in August, but I kept delaying pre-ordering it because last time I pre-ordered from Right Stuff with Persona 3, the movie number 3, they didn't ship it until like 2 weeks after it came out. And I was very frustrated by that. So I'm like, I'll just wait until it's out. And I did, and they've already shipped it, so I guess pre-ordering is a really bad idea there. But anyway, so we've got Persona 3, the movie number 4, the last one. It's coming in. I've officially spent $320 on this series.
Jesus.
Between the 4 movies.
Yeah.
I think it's kind of worth it. It's worth it to me.
That's all that matters. It's worth it to me.
Yeah.
I just get to watch the movies from you and then wait till they weirdly pop up on Netflix all of a sudden.
Some of them.
Yeah, one of them.
One of them. So that'll come soon. I don't know if it'll be here in time for the next podcast, but one of the next 2 podcasts, we're going to be talking the last Persona 3 movie.
Yeah.
You excited?
I'm excited. I'm scared. I'm trembling. I'm sad. I'm everything.
I'm excited we get to do this one more time and watch one of these together and talk about it. It's become a weirdly fun, like, annual or biannual tradition.
Yep, and then on the eve of Persona 5 coming out, like, it feels appropriate to finally get the last Persona 3 movie in and close that chapter in our past before we look forward to our bright red future.
So excited.
Yeah.
Cool things coming up. We've got, I'll talk about Suicide Squad at least. Maybe you will.
We'll see about that.
No Man's Sky is coming out. Lots of other games. They've got the Persona 3 movie. It's kind of go time.
Yeah, this is basically the last episode before shit really hits the fan, and it's all gears ahead. So, let's savor this brief moment of quiet. Let's get our tissues ready for watching the last Persona 3 movie, getting to the end of that motherfucker, and then let's just play video games till we die. I'm excited.